Stella Sterling bought a boyfriend. His name was Harrison Stone, the universally acknowledged campus heartthrob of Centennial University, a man known as the unattainable. However, he had a bedridden mother who needed a kidney transplant. He worked part-time jobs constantly, living a life of financial hardship. Coincidentally, the one thing Stella had never lacked growing up was money. She was hopelessly infatuated with Harrison, seeing that she couldn't win over this iceberg. After chasing him for a long time, she took an unconventional approach. She simply offered to cover his mother's surgery costs and source a kidney in exchange for the opportunity to date him. Consequently, Harrison signed a 3-year contract with her. She would only bind him with money for 3 years. If, after 3 years, he still hadn't fallen in love with Stella, they would break up completely. Today was their 2-year anniversary. A massive pink hot air balloon floated above the city, overlooking the entire capital city. Stella wrapped her arms around Harrison's neck, kissing him with earnest dedication. "After we started dating, you have to kiss me for 10 minutes every day." When they got together, Stella listed many demands, and kissing was one of them. Stella liked to keep her eyes open when kissing. She liked to see Harrison's long eyelashes tremble slightly. This time, she noticed that Harrison's expression was different from before. From the initial awkward coldness, there now seemed to be a hint of focus. Did he like her a little bit now? Her heart stirred, but before she could finish the thought, Harrison's phone rang. The moment he saw the caller ID, his expression cleared, and he instantly released Stella. "Fi, what's wrong?" Whatever was said on the other end changed Harrison's expression completely. He hung up the phone and, without a word, ordered the hot air balloon to land. The balloon landed on the park grass. Before Stella could say anything, he left a cold, "I have something to do, I'm leaving," and walked away briskly. Watching his retreating figure leave in such a hurry, a wave of bitterness surged in Stella's heart. Fiona Fletcher, the daughter of Harrison's childhood neighbor. She was also the only person who could receive Harrison's care without giving anything in return. Seeing him abandon her for Fiona yet again, Stella had to admit, 2 years, over 700 days and nights, and he still hadn't fallen in love with her. Night fell, the stars and moon lonely in the sky. Stella owned a villa outside the campus, so she never lived in the dorms. After they got together, she had Harrison move in with her. Today, he returned very late. It was approaching midnight. Harrison walked into the living room, only to find that Stella hadn't slept yet. She was wearing white silk pajamas, sitting on the sofa reading a magazine. Seeing Harrison return, she closed the magazine and looked at him quietly. Having been together for 2 years, Harrison immediately understood what she wanted. Stella had required him to hold hands, hug, kiss for 10 minutes, and sleep holding her every day. Because he left in a hurry today, the kissing was only half done. "Harrison, our kiss isn't finished." It sounded like a complaint, but her tone was soft. Coupled with her exquisite face, it seemed like a lover's coquetry, but Harrison knew it wasn't. At this moment, the passion from the day was gone from his eyes, replaced by coldness. Sobering up, he knew that everything between him and her was a transaction and a task. He walked closer silently. Being much taller than Stella, he easily wrapped his arm around her waist, gathering her into his shadow. A kiss carrying the chill of the night pressed against her lips. This time, Stella still kept her eyes open, but she couldn't detect any emotion from him. The kiss ended like a completed mission. After showering, Harrison held her as they slept, just like before. Stella wasn't excessive. The most intimate contact between them was just sleeping in each other's arms. The next morning, when she woke up, the space beside her was empty. She washed up and walked out. She saw Harrison frying eggs. Even wearing ordinary gray loungewear, it couldn't hide his handsome features. He didn't turn around, but he knew she was there. He spoke indifferently. "Breakfast will be ready soon. There is cut fruit on the table." When Stella's gaze swept over the plate of fruit on the table, she paused slightly. 2 years, and he still hadn't remembered that she didn't like mangoes. Her heart felt slightly bitter, but she still walked over and hugged his waist from behind. She inhaled the pleasant, cool, woody scent on him. Her fingers idly caressed his side. Smells so good, it was unclear if she meant the eggs or him. "Stop it." Harrison said this, but he didn't make any move to reject her. Stella was his first girlfriend, and also the boldest and most flamboyant girl he had ever met. Proposing a contract to bind him was absurd in the extreme. Over the 2 years of dating, she loved doing various intimate acts. Harrison went from being unaccustomed at the start to now being able to face it all with indifference. The eggs were done. He skillfully plated them. Ignoring her little movements, he said calmly, "Wash your hands and eat." But she wouldn't let go, clinging to Harrison. "You wash them for me." Saying this, she deliberately interlaced her fingers with his and led him to the sink. Harrison was used to it. He lowered his eyes and washed her hands seriously, stroke by stroke. Stella looked at the top of his head and realized she liked him more and more. She couldn't help but lean in and plant a kiss on the side of his face. Harrison froze for a moment, then continued washing her hands as if nothing had happened. After the meal, Stella took out 2 gift bags containing a pair of limited edition sneakers and a watch. They looked expensive at a glance. "These are your second anniversary gifts." She handed the gifts over. Harrison frowned slightly. "No need." He subconsciously resented any other exchanges with Stella. Stella seemed to sense his resistance, but she had asked several friends to help buy these shoes, and she felt a bit sad. So, she habitually used toughness to disguise herself. "I said during our dating period, you cannot refuse me." Harrison looked at her with those cold eyes. In the end, he could only accept them. The shoes Stella bought fit perfectly. She happily asked Harrison to put them on, and Harrison actually wore them to the university, like an obedient machine. In the afternoon, it was Centennial University's anniversary gala. As the representative of outstanding students, Harrison was to speak on stage. In the auditorium, Fiona Fletcher was also one of the student representatives. Seeing Harrison finally arrive, she walked over excitedly. But after seeing Stella beside him, the smile on her face faded immediately. Why are you so late?" Then she saw the obviously expensive new shoes on Harrison's feet. Fiona paused. When she looked at Stella, a trace of disgust flashed in her eyes. Stella sensed that Fiona didn't like her, so she didn't greet her either. Harrison didn't notice this. He simply said, "It's almost time, let's go to rehearsal first." Then he walked backstage with Fiona. Stella sat down in the audience. The auditorium was packed. Harrison's arrival caused quite a sensation. Harrison Stone is really so handsome. No one has been able to beat him for the title of campus heartthrob for 3 consecutive years. It's truly a well-deserved reputation. Who do you think will finally pluck this unattainable flower? Stella had never forced Harrison to go public, so most people in the school didn't know they were a couple. Until she heard someone say sourly, "Who else could it be? It must be Fiona Fletcher." Look, has Harrison ever been that gentle to anyone else? Everyone looked up and saw Harrison fixing Fiona's hair. The tenderness of his expression was something even Stella had never seen. She pressed her hand against her chest, feeling the bitterness there intensify. He had never treated her like that. It seemed she would have to add this clause to the contract in the future. Soon, the gala began. Harrison was the first student representative on stage. Dressed in a simple white shirt and dress pants, tall and upright, he was extraordinarily handsome. But the moment he opened his speech, he realized his original manuscript had been swapped on the paper in his hand now. Only one sentence was written: Harrison Stone, how does it feel to sell your body for glory? Are you qualified to be a student representative like this? In an instant, his gaze froze violently. But 3 seconds later, he put away the speech without changing his expression. Immediately, he improvised into the microphone. Even the audience below didn't notice anything strange, except that the knuckles of the hand holding the paper turned white. After speaking, huge applause erupted from the audience. He left the stage with a cold expression. Stella saw Harrison's momentary abnormality from the audience, but because he was surrounded by people, she couldn't go over to ask. When the gala was about to end, she hurried to the school gate to pick up the flowers she had ordered. She planned to give them to Harrison. When she came back with the flowers, she heard people gossiping on the road. "Go look quickly, Harrison from the finance department is fighting with some guys behind the auditorium." Stella's expression changed, and she ran over frantically. When she arrived, she found several notorious rich second-generation hooligans surrounding Harrison. Several of them had injuries on their faces, obviously from the fight just now. Although there was a bruise at the corner of Harrison's mouth, the stains on his white shirt were the most conspicuous. It was wine deliberately spilled on him by one of these rich kids just now. Harrison, so you know how to fight. Couldn't tell you're actually a man. If you're a man, why do you live off a woman? Was the speech we swapped for you accurate? Stella finally understood the reason for Harrison's abnormality earlier. It turned out his speech had been swapped presumably, something nasty had been written on it. Harrison's eyes were cold. Just as he was about to speak, a girl in a red dress blocked him in the next second. Stella's eyes were icy. Facing a group of men, she showed no fear in her imposing manner. What did you just say? Say it again for me. The Sterling family's status in the capital city was absolute. As the eldest daughter of the Sterling family, this group of people didn't dare to offend Stella. Seeing her arrival, their expressions changed, and their arrogant looks were immediately restrained. Stella suppressed the anger in her heart and spoke coldly. Within 3 seconds, get out of my sight. What a condescending tone, just like how this group had treated him moments ago. Harrison watched them flee coldly, thinking that the class divisions in this world were truly distinct. Stella turned her head, saw the injury at the corner of his mouth and the stains all over him, and anger rushed to her head again. To force someone as naturally cold as Harrison to fight, one could see how excessive those people were. She had originally planned to just give a warning, but now it seemed she couldn't let them off so easily. She immediately took out her phone and dialed a number. Mr. Lee, I'll send you the information of a few people later. Expulsion or demerits, whatever it takes, from now on, I don't want to see them at Centennial University. Stella hung up the phone and felt the anger in her chest subside a little. But when she looked up, she found Harrison looking at her coldly. With one sentence, she could decide the fate of others. Clearly, Stella was helping him, but he found it laughable. He said faintly, "Why be angry? What they said is the truth. I am indeed just a toy Miss Sterling pays to keep for amusement." She knew he was mocking her, mocking how 3 years ago she used the thing he cared about most to force him to become her boyfriend. But looking at his expression at this moment, Stella felt more heartache than grievance. Yes, if she hadn't insisted on forcing things, why would Harrison be ridiculed by such people? In this life, she hadn't done a single bad thing, except for the matter of Harrison Stone, where she was terribly persistent. She just wanted to be with him, that was why she came up with that desperate method. Knowing she had wronged him, she silently wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, then squatted down and used her expensive sleeve to wipe the spilled wine from his shoes. The high and mighty young lady was willing to bend down for him. Harrison was slightly stunned by her action. The next second, Stella stood up and hugged him. Her starry eyes shone with a dazzling light. "Harrison, there are financial entanglements between us, but I've never been just playing with you. I really like you, very much." In the narrow backstage corridor, one could even hear the heartbeats and breathing of the two. Harrison stared at her face, seeming to be in a trance for a moment. Unknowingly, the two got closer, and the atmosphere became ambiguous. Stella stood on tiptoe, just about to kiss his lips. But then his phone rang again. It was Fiona calling again. Harrison pushed her away without hesitation and answered the phone. Fiona had probably heard the news of his fight and was extremely anxious, calling immediately. His tone was cold as usual, but with a touch more gentleness. "I'm fine, Fi, don't worry." This time, Stella couldn't listen anymore. She really didn't have the temper to let Fiona interrupt them again and again. Disregarding that he was still on the phone, Stella suddenly pinched his waist tight and kissed him recklessly. "MMMs." Hearing the noise on the other end, Fiona immediately asked, "What's wrong?" Harrison was kissed breathless by Stella. While guarding against her mischief with one hand, it took him a while to calm his breathing. He could only accept the kiss while restraining himself. "Nothing, I have something to do, hanging up now." Hanging up the phone, the device hit the ground with a bang. Another week passed, and it was the day of Harrison's mother's surgery. Stella had visited Mrs. Stone often over the past 2 years, and this time she brought many bags of things. Just as she walked to the door of the ward, she heard Fiona's voice. Through the crack of the unclosed door, she saw tears in Fiona's eyes as she suddenly hugged Harrison. "You've paid enough for Auntie. When are you going to break up with her?" Stella naturally knew her, referred to herself. Her hand holding the bags tightened as she looked at Harrison. Their relationship had been much closer recently. Even when she deliberately kissed him while he was on the phone with Fiona last time, he didn't get angry. So, Stella hadn't thought about the topic of breaking up for a long time. She thought maybe Harrison was trying to accept her. But right now, Harrison had no intention of pushing Fiona away. He was just silent for a long time. Finally, he said in a deep voice, "One more year and everything will end." Stella's breath hitched. 1 year later would be the day their agreement expired. Her heart throbbed with pain. The next second, she abruptly pushed open the door. Only Harrison and Fiona were in the ward. Fiona was still hugging Harrison from behind. Hearing the noise, she jumped in fright. Stella looked at the two coldly and spoke indifferently. "Miss Fletcher, do I need to remind you whose boyfriend you are hugging right now?" Hearing this, Fiona guiltily let go. But when Stella got angry, she tended to be aggressive. She looked at Harrison and asked somewhat mockingly, "Did I come at a bad time?" Harrison frowned. "It's not what you think." But Stella had heard his words clearly just now. Just as she was about to speak with a sneer, Mrs. Stone was wheeled in by a nurse after finishing chemotherapy. Stella didn't want to argue in front of her, so she extinguished her anger. Mrs. Stone was very happy to see Stella. Stella had come to keep her company often over the past 2 years, and Mrs. Stone liked her very much. Seeing her holding so many things, she said again, "Stella, I told you last time, don't buy things next time you come." Stella smiled. "Mom, it's just some food. I was afraid you weren't eating well in the hospital." Mrs. Stone knew she was always the most attentive. She looked at Harrison with dissatisfaction. "Your girlfriend is carrying so many things, don't you know to help her take them?" Harrison then silently went to take the things from her hands. Watching Mrs. Stone be so affectionate with Stella, a darkness flashed in Fiona's eyes. But she didn't leave either. Instead, she stayed in the ward to chat with Mrs. Stone. With so many people accompanying her, Mrs. Stone was exceptionally happy today. But because her body was weak, she fell asleep while chatting. The atmosphere solidified somewhat. Stella felt she had nothing to say besides questioning him, so she simply took a piece of iced watermelon to eat. Fiona also wanted to take a piece, but was stopped by Harrison. "Your period is coming soon, don't eat cold things." In an instant, both Fiona and Stella were stunned. The next second, Fiona shyly put down the watermelon and glanced secretly at Stella, triumph in her eyes. And the sweet watermelon in Stella's mouth became tasteless. Together for 2 years, he didn't remember she hated mangoes, but he remembered when Fiona's period was. How do you remember my period?" Fiona couldn't suppress her smugness and deliberately looked at Harrison. Harrison didn't seem to notice the undercurrents in the ward. "In sophomore year of high school, you fainted running the 800 meters on your period. I took you to the infirmary." Fiona's smile grew wider. "You remember something from so long ago, I remember now. That time, you missed the exam in the next class for me, right?" The two opened up the conversation box just like that, chatting about past events as if they had endless things to say. While Stella sat aside, looking like an outsider. Whether Fiona was intentional or not, they talked from high school to middle school, and from middle school to elementary school. It was like a quiet provocation towards Stella. "Look, so what if you forced him to be with you? You still can't insert yourself into his life." It wasn't until Mrs. Stone woke up that the three said goodbye and left. Walking out of the hospital, Stella deliberately asked Fiona to take her car, saying she would drive her back to the university. Perhaps because Harrison was there, she didn't refuse. But what she didn't know was that Stella, growing up, hated 2 things most. First, people coveting her things. Second, people provoking her. Unfortunately, she committed both. So when the car stopped at the school gate, before Fiona got off, Stella suddenly turned her head to look at Harrison. "We haven't kissed today." The corners of her lips hooked up. It sounded like acting cute, but it revealed the tough undertone he was familiar with. Harrison's eyes darkened slightly. Knowing what she wanted to do, he still leaned over and kissed her lips. Watching the two kiss at such close range, Fiona froze completely at first. Then, her face turned pale, and she got out of the car as if escaping. After the kiss, Harrison let go of her lips, looking at her beautiful eyes from extremely close range, asking expressionlessly, "Have you caused enough trouble?" Hearing him sounding like he was defending Fiona, who had just been agitated, Stella couldn't help but laugh out of anger. She reached out and touched his slightly cool lips. "Do you care about Fiona Fletcher that much?" Harrison frowned and was about to speak, but the next second, he heard her voice devoid of any emotion. "But even if you are certain you won't fall in love with me, don't forget, at least for now, You are still my boyfriend." Many emotions flashed through Harrison's eyes, finally returning to the coldness she was most familiar with. He retreated to his seat. "You don't need to remind me. I am very clear about my identity." Actually, Stella was just jealous and wanted Harrison to coax her. But he had absolutely no interest in coaxing her. The two parted on bad terms. Stella was so angry she simply didn't return to the villa they lived in together, but went straight home. Sterling Manor. She rarely went home after starting college. Coming back today, she found the atmosphere at home somewhat oppressive. Her mother, who usually loved flower arranging and tea tasting, was sitting on the sofa in a daze. Seeing her return, her expression improved slightly. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Mrs." Sterling squeezed out a smile. "Nothing. Why are you back, Stella?" Stella sat down beside her. "Just to keep you company." At this moment, Mr. Sterling also came down from upstairs. Stella was somewhat surprised. "Dad, aren't you usually at the company at this time?" Mr. Sterling paused slightly, exchanged a look with her mother, and both their eyes were somewhat evasive. Immediately, Mr. Sterling put on his usual stern appearance. "You run wild outside every day, and you still dare to come back. Played with that poor boy for 2 years and still haven't had enough. I found a marriage partner for you. You go obediently to the blind date." Since her father scolded her daily anyway, Stella just assumed he still looked down on Harrison. Not wanting to hear the nagging, she quickly ran upstairs. "I don't want to. I'm not playing with Harrison, I'm serious." After speaking, she returned to her room and packed some things. Mrs. Sterling immediately stood up and asked nervously, "Stella, why are you packing? Is someone looking for you?" Stella didn't hear the anomaly in her tone. "No, exams are over and it's the holidays. I made plans with some sisters to go out and play. My phone will be off for the next few days. Dad, Mom, remember to leave a message if there's anything, don't call me." Carrying her luggage, Stella waved as she walked out of the house. Returning to the villa she shared with Harrison, she found that he hadn't come back. The two began a long Cold War just like that, and Harrison was probably the best person in the world at Cold Wars. He neither replied to messages nor returned to the apartment. Stella sent him text messages tirelessly every day, reminding him how many hugs and kisses he owed her. But he didn't reply to any of them. "Third day of running away from home. You owe me 3 hugs, 3 hand holdings, and 30 minutes of kissing." After Stella sent it, the message was like a stone sinking into the ocean. She felt bored instantly and browsed the school forum idly, only to see a hot post on the homepage finance department God Harrison Stone's girlfriend exposed. Stella's fingertips stalled, and she clicked in immediately. Inside was a photo secretly taken by someone of Harrison hugging Fiona. Unknown if it was the angle, but the hug looked very intimate. She was stunned at first, then remembering Harrison's neglect these past few days, she couldn't help but feel angry. Exiting the forum, she opened the chat log with Harrison again. With that photo filling her mind, she uncontrollably typed a line of words. "Do you still want your mother's surgery to go smoothly?" But she regretted it as soon as she sent it. Just as she wanted to retract it, she received Harrison's first reply in 3 days, only a period. It turned out he had been watching his phone, just ignoring her before. Stella's heart felt slightly sour. She dialed the phone, and the other end actually picked up. Before she could speak, Harrison's calm voice came through. "East Wing Suite, come over. I'll make up for everything I owe these past few days." For some reason, she felt even worse. Seeing the luggage in the living room, she pursed her lips. "Not these few days, I have things to do." Harrison naturally had no interest in what she was doing and didn't ask further. Silence on the phone for a moment. Finally, Stella asked again, "Harrison, in these 2 years, have you really not liked me even a little bit?" Harrison said, "The contract doesn't stipulate that I must like you." Stella blurted out, "Then if I were to marry someone else, you wouldn't care either, right?" Silence on that end for a few seconds, followed by his voice devoid of ripples. "I would wish you happiness." After this call, Stella didn't contact Harrison for several days in a row. It was as if she was angry. Even for Mrs. Stone's surgery, she didn't appear. Usually, she came to the hospital very diligently, but for Mrs. Stone's kidney transplant surgery, she didn't even make a phone call from start to finish. On the day of the surgery, only Harrison and Fiona were there. Fortunately, the surgery went very smoothly, and Mrs. Stone woke up in the evening. She kept asking him how things were with Stella recently. "Harrison, Stella is a very good child, don't let her down." In the ward, Mrs. Stone held her son's hand and spoke earnestly. "Don't always be so cold to people. Girls need to be coaxed." Harrison had never told Mrs. Stone about his transaction with Stella, so she always thought they were dating freely. Mrs. Stone said a lot more about how good Stella was and how much she liked him. He listened, suddenly remembering that day when Stella asked him if he really cared about Fiona so much. Such a proud and bright person, yet her eyes were red at that moment. His heart moved. He thought about how she hadn't contacted him for so many days. After coaxing Mrs. Stone to rest, he walked out of the ward, took out his phone, and looked hesitantly at Stella's number. At this moment, Fiona also walked over. Seeing him staring at Stella's number in a daze, she handed her phone with a freshly refreshed social feed to him. Are you looking for Stella Sterling? Don't bother her. Miss Sterling is having fun right now." Harrison swept his gaze over and immediately saw the 9-grid photos Stella updated 3 minutes ago. The location was abroad. At a pool party, the photos were full of half-naked male models. Instantly, Harrison's face darkened. Fiona saw his expression. "I told you long ago, this kind of young lady won't be serious." Harrison's dark eyes grew heavier, and he turned off his phone directly. He must be crazy to want to contact her actively. Almost a week later, Stella finally contacted Harrison. She sent him an address directly, telling him to make up for everything owed recently. The address was a high-end hotel in the capital city. After Harrison went there, as soon as he opened the door, Stella threw herself onto him impatiently. He subconsciously took a step back and caught Stella steadily. Stella jumped onto him, her slender legs deliberately wrapping around his waist. Harrison noticed her face seemed a bit pale. Just as he wanted to ask something, he remembered those half-naked male models. He sneered internally. She probably lived too hedonistically abroad. "Get down," he said coldly, but Stella wouldn't comply. Her hands cupped his face obsessively, and she kissed him without a word. It was an extremely passionate kiss, as if venting nearly half a month of longing. Harrison was thrown into disarray by her kiss after a while. Holding her waist, he walked towards the bed. He intended to put her down, but ended up being pulled onto the bed together. Stella's hand traced his features, speaking seductively in his ear. "Harrison, I want you." Sensing his body stiffen violently, she spoke again. "This is also in the contract. You've owed me for 2 years. Do you want to go back on your word?" Harrison's eyes darkened. Looking at her charming face, he was both seduced and filled with a nameless fire from the bottom of his heart. He flipped over and pressed her under him. "Don't regret it." With that, overwhelming kisses rained down. Afterwards, Stella was trembling all over from pain, even shedding physiological tears, nestling in his arms. "It hurts." Harrison was equally stunned seeing the bloodstains on the sheets. He thought it wouldn't be her first time, so his actions just now were really not gentle, even somewhat rough. Stella's face became paler and paler, hugging his waist tightly. "Let's not have a Cold War anymore, okay? I didn't intentionally not look for you during this time. I just went for appendicitis surgery." Saying that, she lifted her clothes. Look, it left a scar. It really hurt. During the intimacy just now, Harrison had indeed seen and touched the scar on her body. Looking at Stella's face, which appeared fragile due to pain, he ultimately didn't expose the matter of her going to the party. He just whispered, "I know." Most men are always more considerate than usual afterwards, or perhaps because he was too rough just now, Harrison felt somewhat guilty. He unskillfully helped Stella put on clothes, and knowing she had no strength, he carried her out of bed to eat. Their Cold War finally ended here. Harrison also moved back to the villa. Because the barrier had been broken, and Stella always liked to tease him for no reason, Harrison's willpower plummeted. The two would start kissing at the slightest disagreement in the villa, ending up making a mess everywhere. Sex is probably truly the best weapon to heat up a relationship between men and women. During this time, Stella clearly felt Harrison was much closer to her. Even when she went out drinking with friends in her circle and asked Harrison to pick her up, he didn't refuse. The Blue Moon Club. Harrison came to the address Stella gave him after finishing his classes. When he walked into the private room, he found she wasn't there. There were other second-generation rich heirs and socialites inside who also knew Harrison. Stella went to the restroom, someone told him. Harrison thanked them and stood aside waiting for her to return. But a drunk socialite looked at Harrison's handsome face and couldn't help but feel moved. She walked over unsteadily, her hand with exquisite manicures trying to touch him. "Harrison, how about being my boyfriend? What Stella Sterling can give you, I can give you too." The subtext was that she also wanted to keep him as a toy boy. Harrison looked cold, turning his face away to avoid her hand. "I have a girlfriend." The socialite sneered. Then, several of her sisters came over to jeer. Harrison frowned, turning to wait in the corridor. At this moment, the waiter happened to come over with the bill. Who is paying the bill? Those people had just been rejected by Harrison and deliberately wanted to make things difficult for him. Stella is paying today, but she's not here. How about her boyfriend pays? Deliberately emphasizing the word boyfriend with a tone full of mockery. They all knew Harrison's family background and were certain he couldn't afford it. As a result, when the waiter gave the bill to Harrison, he swiped his card neither humbly nor arrogantly. Stella walked in just in time to see him finish swiping that card. She recognized at a glance that it was the money Harrison had earned from taking projects all summer, staying up late. She walked over immediately, grabbing his hand. "What are you doing?" A drunk person who enjoyed watching the drama explained. Just now Vivian wanted to keep him. He refused and said he had a girlfriend, so Vivian asked him to pay the bill for you. In everyone's eyes, Stella was just playing with Harrison, so they had no psychological burden, speaking with sheer mockery. The result was Stella's face turning black immediately. She swept the wine bottles in front of her onto the ground directly. Crash broken glass everywhere. Her temper as a young lady was always significant. She just restrained it in front of Harrison. Right now, pointing directly at the noses of these fair-weather friends, she said coldly, "Harrison is my boyfriend to begin with. What are you things, daring to humiliate him?" As soon as these words came out, the faces of those socialites instantly turned ugly. But Stella wasn't finished. "Him paying the bill today counts as a farewell to you. If I find you being rude to him again in the future, try me." Saying that, she dragged Harrison and walked out. Outside the corridor, Harrison frowned and held her back. "You didn't need to fall out with them for me." He was an adult and knew better the benefits of one more friend than one more enemy, especially in their upper-class circle. Stella's face remained cold. "I don't care. Harrison, no one is more important than you. As long as I'm here, no one can bully you." Harrison looked at her side profile, and his heart suddenly moved. During the years of his mother's illness, he had seen too much of the fickleness of human nature. Stella Sterling was the first person to care so much about his feelings. Even though their beginning originated from a transaction, he still felt a trace of warmth in this monetary field that should have been cold. However, after returning home, Stella returned to her true colors, hugging him without letting go. "You haven't given me today's kiss." Harrison held her down on the sofa and kissed her, kissing seriously and for a long time. Finally, Stella could hardly breathe, clutching his clothes. It seems overtime." Harrison loosened his grip slightly, raised his left hand and pressed his watch, his voice hoarse. "The time is inaccurate." Saying that, he leaned over and kissed her again. The relationship between the two became more and more intimate. A week later, heavy rains suddenly fell in the capital city. Stella caught a cold after accidentally getting caught in the rain, developed a fever, and took time off from classes to rest. While Harrison was in class during the day, he kept thinking about her fever, so he simply went back to the villa in the afternoon to take care of her. In the quiet bedroom, Stella slept groggily on the bed. Tissues were scattered all over the floor. Harrison silently cleaned up for her, then touched her forehead. The fever hadn't subsided. He frowned, wanting to pick Stella up to go to the hospital for an IV drip. Just as he leaned down, he happened to see her phone by the pillow light up. It was a message reply from her good friend. "Sure enough, men are all about the same. The one you like is the same too." He narrowed his eyes. Looking at Stella's fever-flushed cheeks, he picked up the phone like a ghost. Stella's phone wasn't locked. He could open it directly to look. Pinned at the top was a chat with a close girlfriend of hers. Harrison clicked in and scrolled back. The other party asked, "How is the progress?" "I told you long ago, being with a man, there's nothing that going to bed can't solve. Do it a few more times and even a saint will fall in love with you." Stella, indeed effective. Is that difficult one in your house finally wavering? Stella. Yes, thanks to your ideas, the conquest progress should be halfway done now. The last one was the sentence the friend just replied. After reading it, Harrison's eyes were so dark they could drip water. He thought this period was a natural, inevitable development between the two, but unexpectedly, it was still a trap carefully planned by her. Yes, how could he forget? She used feelings as bargaining chips from the very beginning. At this moment, Stella finally woke up, opening her eyes with difficulty to look at him. Seeing his bad expression, she said with a hoarse voice, "What's wrong?" Harrison threw the phone to her, speaking coldly. "Stella Sterling, you even have to broadcast this kind of thing to your friends?" Stella's head was still groggy. Seeing him revert to his former attitude, her heart tightened. Knowing he might have seen the chat history, she said, "Harrison, it's not what you think." Seeing her continue to argue, Harrison became even angrier. "Stella Sterling, you are truly incurable. Must you calculate everything you do?" Stella was already sick, and hearing such harsh words, she naturally felt wronged. "I calculate. I've said so many times that I truly like you. Have you ever believed me?" Halfway through their argument, Harrison's phone rang. It was Fiona calling again, saying the power was out at home, and she accidentally sprained her ankle. Seeing Harrison seemingly about to leave again, Stella immediately crawled up from the bed and hugged him tightly from behind. In the past, Harrison would always abandon her for Fiona, but this time she didn't want to let him just go like this. "Harrison, don't go to Fiona Fletcher this time. I feel so terrible, I have a fever. Stay with me, stay with me." At this moment, thunder rumbled outside the window. She didn't know if it was because of the fever or something else, she just felt so terrible, so terrible. Her body was burning hot, her heart was stifled, as if something bad was about to happen. Every time before, she compromised and let Harrison leave. But this time, she hurt too much, felt too terrible. She was forcing Harrison to make a choice. A feverish girlfriend versus Fiona with a sprained ankle, or rather, Stella Sterling versus Fiona Fletcher. Who would he choose? She had clearly felt closer to him recently, but she was still unsure if she could compare to Fiona. Who exactly was in his heart right now? The next second, she felt Harrison hold her hand. Her heart rejoiced, but in the next instant, her hand was forcefully pried away from his body. He directly threw off Stella's hand and turned to leave. The moment she was thrown off, Stella's heart trembled violently. She was clearly weak all over, but not knowing where the strength came from, she rushed over again and blocked the door. She looked at him with red eyes. "Harrison Stone, don't think I will indulge you again and again. If you dare to leave, I won't like you anymore." Under the fierce expression hid an uneasy heart, but Harrison only sneered. "Is that so? I couldn't ask for more." With that, he pushed Stella aside and left. Stella watched helplessly as he left, watching him disappear from her sight. So, he still liked Fiona. The suffocating feeling in her chest grew heavier. All the strength in her body seemed to be drained. Suddenly, a life-demanding ringtone rang. It was from the Sterling Manor. As soon as it connected, the old butler's crying voice came from the other end. "Miss, please come back quickly. The master and madam committed suicide." It had been almost a week since the two parted on bad terms that day. If it were before, Stella would have come over to act pitiful and apologize long ago, but this time, she actually hadn't contacted him even once. Harrison went to class and finished class as usual, but only he knew how upset he was inside. Even when attending class and eating in the cafeteria with Fiona, he was always absent-minded. Cafeteria. Harrison casually picked up the vegetables on the plate. Just as he was about to eat, he was stopped by Fiona. "This is broccoli, aren't you allergic?" Harrison then reacted and put down his chopsticks. Seeing his distracted appearance, Fiona asked tentatively, "What's wrong with you recently? Is it because of Stella Sterling?" Hearing this name after a long time, his eyes still trembled, but he deliberately put on a cold appearance. "What does she have to do with me?" But the more he thought about it, the more annoyed he felt. Finally, he simply stopped eating. In the afternoon, Harrison came to the hospital to accompany his mother. Mrs. Stone had been recuperating very well recently, and her spirit was much better than before. Naturally, seeing her son's distracted look, she remembered she hadn't seen Stella for a long time and asked about her. "Harrison, did you fight with Stella recently?" Harrison looked down, peeling an apple for her, not answering. Mrs. Stone sighed and said to herself, "You don't always be so stubborn. Look in that cabinet, it's all gifts she bought for me. Jade for peace, amulets for blessing." She knew I was doing chemotherapy and afraid I would feel bad losing hair. So she specially bought me suitable wigs and asked a manicurist to come do my nails, just to make me feel better. She is rich, yes, but if she didn't care, how could she be so thoughtful? Listening to these things Stella did, Harrison's hand peeling the apple paused. Mrs. Stone looked at Harrison's still cold expression, hesitated for a while, sighed again, and finally couldn't help saying, "Besides, do you think Stella only paid money for my surgery to go so smoothly? She kept telling me not to tell you, but I'm really afraid you'll let her down. Harrison, I needed surgery urgently, but where is a kidney source so easy to find? Do you know, the reason I could have the surgery so quickly is because the kidney in my body was donated by Stella. Where were you thinking she was when I was in surgery? She was on the operating table too." Instantly, the knife and apple in Harrison's hand dropped. His face turned completely pale. "What did you say? Stella Sterling is the person who donated the kidney to you?" Mrs. Stone nodded with tears in her eyes. "Harrison, how much must she like you to do such a thing for you? In this life, you absolutely cannot let her down." In an instant, Harrison's scalp went numb, feeling like his whole person was about to explode. He stood up abruptly, immediately walked out and dialed her number. When dialing, even his hands were shaking. During the few seconds waiting for the connection, countless images flashed through his mind. There was her acting cute saying, "H, why just won't you believe that I really like you?" There was her pitifully lifting her clothes saying, "H, let's not have a Cold War, okay? I haven't felt well recently either. I had surgery for appendicitis and it left a scar. It hurt so much." There was her red-eyed look saying, "Harrison, if you dare walk out this door, I won't like you anymore." His whole heart felt like it was being fried in a pan of oil, but Stella Sterling didn't answer the phone. Harrison couldn't wait. He ran back to the villa like a madman, only to find the entire villa empty. Her things were all moved away. He remembered when she first moved him in here, she said, "H, this will be our love nest from now on, just you and me." But now, she moved away. What did she mean? He called Stella like crazy. He called many times, but she didn't answer. Just when he almost wanted to call the police, the other end finally picked up. His heart almost jumped out of his throat, but in the end, he only asked one sentence. "Where are you?" He needed to meet her and talk everything out clearly. The other end of the phone was frighteningly quiet. It took a long time before she said, "I am on a date." Hearing the word date, Harrison's scalp tingled. "Date? With whom?" This time Stella replied very quickly, but her voice was very light. Her side was also frighteningly quiet. "With my arranged marriage partner." "Stella Sterling, I am the boyfriend." Harrison realized his voice was trembling. But this time, Stella, who usually clung to him, had a tone that was extremely cold. "Harrison, we have already broken up. Last time you chose to go to Fiona Fletcher, it meant you gave up on our relationship. It's just as well. With my status, it was impossible to be with a poor student like you anyway. My parents have found me a suitable marriage partner. I've played enough these 2 years. The contract is terminated early. I'm setting you free early. I wish you and Fiona happiness." After speaking, without waiting for Harrison to speak again, she hung up the phone directly. Harrison had never thought Stella would proactively call off this relationship. He had never thought that despite this being what he clearly hoped for, at this moment he felt no joy at all. Instead, it felt like someone was fiercely squeezing his heart, oppressing him so much he could hardly breathe. He dialed the number again, but hearing the mechanical voice on the other end, he realized he had been blocked by her. Startled, he turned and rushed out the door, running to the university. But when he got to the university, the words of a student from the same department struck him like a thunderbolt, freezing him in place. "Stella Sterling?" She dropped out. She sent someone to handle it in a hurry yesterday. Seems her family found a marriage partner for her, and she's going abroad with that partner, never to return. Boom. Harrison froze in place, his mind completely occupied by this sentence, unable to hear anything else. 5 years later, Centennial University held its anniversary celebration, and alumni from all over the world gathered in the capital city. Someone also organized a class reunion casually. When Harrison walked into the private room, everyone else automatically made way for the central seat for him. Today in the capital city, Harrison was in the limelight. He was a self-made wealthy upstart and a business wizard with the Midas touch. Fiona held Harrison's arm, looking completely different from 5 years ago, poised and elegant. Standing with Harrison, they were undoubtedly a talented man and beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. At this moment, the door to the private room opened. A woman wearing a waitress uniform pushed a cart in. She looked dusty all over, head bowed, bending over respectfully to place each bottle of wine on the table. No one would pay attention to an ordinary waitress, but a cold gaze had been sizing her up since she entered. A group of old classmates began to chat, counting who didn't come today. Old Zhang didn't come. He's on Wall Street now, didn't return to the country this time. Old Lee didn't come either, heard his wife gave birth again. Speaking of which, Stella Sterling didn't come either. She really vanished without a trace. 5 years, she hasn't come to a single reunion. Talking about Stella, everyone was still somewhat sentimental. Back then, she was the most passionate and dazzling red rose of Centennial University. Who knew the sky would change overnight? Suddenly, someone reacted, silenced immediately, and looked at Harrison. Quite a few people in the circle knew about Harrison and Stella's past. It was just that Harrison was different now, and no one dared to touch upon bad luck in front of him. Now, everyone looked at Harrison cautiously, afraid that mentioning this name would cause his displeasure. As expected, Fiona sitting next to Harrison frowned upon hearing this. "Don't mention her. H doesn't like it. Bad luck." No one noticed that the waitress with zero presence in the private room had a slight tremble in her hand, but a sharp gaze took this movement into account. She finished placing all the wine in a hurry, lowered her head, and stood up wanting to leave. Harrison's expression had been indifferent from beginning to end, but when that inconspicuous waitress suddenly prepared to leave, his eyes were like a falcon's as he suddenly called out to her. "Stop!" The woman's thin back trembled fiercely. The entire private room suddenly went quiet. No one knew why Harrison would be interested in a waitress. The waitress also stiffened, her hand by her side shaking slightly. Others in the room whispered amongst themselves, while Harrison, with a burning gaze, stared at her coldly the whole time. Suddenly, his thin lips parted, speaking word by word. "You turn around, look up." The woman, who hadn't moved for a long time, turned slowly, then raised her head as if accepting her fate. That familiar face shocked everyone present. They couldn't believe this ordinary waitress was actually the high and mighty Miss Sterling from back then. Seeing her wretched state now, after the shock, there was a sense of refreshing pleasure like seeing a tiger fall into the plains being bullied by dogs. They couldn't help but start mocking and ridiculing her. Fiona held Harrison's arm, noble like a victor. "Oh, isn't this Miss Sterling? How did you change professions to become a waitress?" Stella felt a sense of shame like being stripped naked and watched by everyone. On the surface, her eyes were waveless, deep as the sea without sunlight. Harrison watched all this coldly. She laughed at herself, then said, "Yes, I am Stella Sterling." Is this answer satisfactory? When meeting Stella's eyes, Harrison's pupils shrank. His breathing suddenly became light and thin, seemingly enduring something with great effort. No, he wasn't satisfied. Why could Stella's few inexplicable sentences back then make him live in fear for these 5 years? Why did it end just because she said end? Fiona leaned on Harrison's shoulder. "Where has Miss Sterling been these past few years? How did you become so destitute?" The people below couldn't stop jeering. "Hey, what Miss Sterling? Just a waitress now." Harrison looked with complicated eyes at Stella, who just lowered her eyes and didn't speak. "Rebut them? Why don't you rebut? Where did all that imposing manner from 5 years ago go?" Stella raised her eyes and swept a glance at the surrounding people. Under that indifferent gaze, they subconsciously shut their mouths. "Are you done? If you're done, I still have work to do, so I won't keep you company." She just turned around, but the man's slightly hoarse, restrained voice exploded behind Stella. "Stop!" Stella's footsteps paused, but she didn't look back. What else does President Stone want? Then she heard the tapping sound of leather shoes on the ground behind her. He took a step closer, and Stella's heart shook. The footsteps stopped behind her. Harrison said slowly, "Let's make a deal. You be my girlfriend." Stella's face turned pale instantly. Past pain surged into her heart again. Clenching her fists, she said bitterly, "Must you be like this? Exposing me to my face, letting them humiliate me isn't enough." Harrison's eagle-like eyes half closed, his heart twinged with pain, seemingly wanting to see through this woman's heart. Not enough. I just want to claim back the debt from those 2+ years. True, 5 years ago she started it like this. Harrison wanting revenge wasn't wrong. Stella closed her sore eyes. Fine. She mustered the courage to turn around, looking directly into Harrison's pitch-black eyes. I have a condition. I want money. Meeting those watery eyes, Harrison's heart trembled. This was the first time seeing such a fragile side of Stella. He agreed to Stella's condition without thinking. At this moment, a wave of fear surged in Fiona's heart. Seeing the change in his expression, she immediately ran forward to dissuade him. She treated you like that back then, why do you still? Harrison glared at Fiona. My business, you don't need to manage. She shut up immediately. He actually scolded her for a Stella Sterling. This confused everyone else about the relationship between the three of them. Could it be that Harrison searching like crazy for Stella these past 5 years meant he really loved Stella? Thinking about it now, Fiona seemed to have turned into a shield. Was that why there had been 0 scandals? Thinking further, even this so-called love transaction seemed like an excuse to give Stella a way out. So Harrison was actually a romantic. He put one hand in his suit pocket, wrapping the other around her slender waist, pulling her close to declare sovereignty. She was thinner than before. Harrison's restrained facial contours were taut, but the action of holding her waist carried a bit of tenderness. Actually, it wasn't just Harrison who couldn't see through Stella. She also couldn't understand why Harrison was doing this. There was no benefit in this. Harrison immediately took Stella away, but didn't go straight home. Instead, he let Stella choose clothes in the mall, really unable to watch Stella hesitating, and unable to let go to choose. Harrison directly asked the sales assistant to pick 7 or 8 pieces for her to try. When Stella put on that pure white long dress, Harrison's eyes couldn't help but hold a bit more scrutiny, feeling that this looked about 70% like the Stella from back then, but somehow felt something was still missing. He announced loudly, "Pack all these up. She'll wear the one she has on." The sales assistant agreed with a smile. After all, this was the first time meeting a customer so generous in buying clothes. Originally, Harrison was smiling slightly, but when he saw Stella looking at the price tags, his brows turned a few degrees colder. "What are you doing?" Stella's movement paused. She also saw the price of over $10,000 on this dress. "This dress is too expensive. Actually, I don't need." Harrison frowned, a trace of sorrow in his eyes, yet there was hidden anger. "I can afford it." Stella saw Harrison insisting on buying and finally didn't say much more. There was no need to ask for a snub. Harrison took Stella to his own villa. Sitting on the sofa, he began instructing the butler to go to Stella's home to move things over. "A dress." Stella stood there and declined politely. "I can go myself, no need to trouble you." Harrison frowned deeply, asking with dissatisfaction, "Don't refuse my requests." She pursed her lips and told the butler her home address. For a long time, the two remained in a stalemate, until Harrison took out a pack of cigarettes from his body. Stella's eyes moved slightly. Harrison took out a cigarette and lit it with a lighter. Just as he was about to put it in his mouth, Stella lowered her eyes and suddenly stopped him. "Smoking is bad for your health." His hand didn't make the next move for a long time. The corner of his mouth raised in an imperceptible smile. Then realizing something, Harrison suppressed the smile again. When she looked at Harrison, he just lowered his head, facial contours quiet and heavy, that restraint and tolerance displayed seamlessly. Although in the end, Harrison didn't seem to take her words to heart and continued holding the cigarette. His long legs crossed elegantly, long fingers calmly flicking the ash. But unexpectedly, he stubbed out the cigarette he had only taken one puff of directly into the ashtray. This action surprised Stella. She thought Harrison wouldn't listen to her, but he threw it away after just one puff. Did it count as listening to what she said? Harrison glanced at Stella from time to time, finding she was still staring at him, seemingly thinking about something. The tips of his ears couldn't help but dye a blush of red. Then he coughed deliberately a few times to bring Stella back to reality. Harrison stood up and said to Stella, "Your room is on the 2nd floor. I'll take you to see it." "Okay." Stella followed behind Harrison. Indeed, he was different from before, more mature, with a sense of cold alienation. But this also meant that she and Harrison were no longer people of the same world. Only the her from 5 years ago could have the possibility to be with Harrison with peace of mind. She didn't know why Harrison suddenly stopped. Stella bumped directly into his solid back, perhaps scared into a subconscious reaction by those unreasonable people. Stella just said one sentence. "I'm sorry." Harrison felt Stella treating him like a stranger. Just a bump, no skin lost. Instantly angry. "Stella Sterling, must you be like this?" Stella didn't understand why Harrison was suddenly angry and looked at him in confusion. Turning to face Stella, Harrison's momentum instantly weakened. "I don't want to hear the words 'I'm sorry' and 'thank you' from your mouth." Stella looked at Harrison's eyes full of complex emotions and seemed to sense something. "Okay." Then she followed behind him again, stepping step by step on the path he walked. Then she revealed a sweet smile. Harrison happened to see that heartfelt smile of Stella's in the room's mirror. The corners of his mouth couldn't be restrained from curling up. "This is your room." Looking at the decoration and furnishings of this room, a sense of familiarity surged in Stella. Wasn't this exactly the same as the furnishings of her previous villa? Even the renovation was the same. She looked at Harrison in surprise, seemingly asking silently why he did this. Was it a coincidence, or did he prepare it specially? But Harrison pretended to be bland, seemingly not going to give superfluous explanations. Finally, Stella dismissed the thought. She whispered softly, "Thank you." Not long after, the butler brought all of Stella's things over, then cleaned the room with Stella. After sorting it out roughly, she looked at those clothes worth tens of thousands in the closet, feeling mixed emotions. Then, sitting by the bed thinking about her current situation, helpless and relying on others, having nothing. To actually be brought home by Harrison. If Harrison was purely seeking revenge, then why spend so much money buying clothes for her? And why renovate a room exactly like her old one? Or perhaps, why were you looking for Stella Sterling so urgently back then? Looking like that, we almost thought Stella dumped you. What did those people's words mean? Could it be that, after she left 5 years ago, Harrison specifically looked for her? Stella smiled bitterly, feeling how ridiculous her fantasy was. Clearly, at that time, he and Fiona were intimate, and he even said their relationship was just a transaction. How could he spend so much time just to find and arrogant her? His heart should be thinking, dreaming of getting rid of her quickly. The next day, Stella woke up quite early, got up and went to the kitchen to prepare breakfast. After all, she thought, since it was to pay back previous debts. Stella should prepare breakfast. When Harrison woke up, seeing Stella busy in the kitchen, he suddenly had the illusion of married life. He coughed deliberately to let Stella know he was awake. Sure enough, Stella looked towards the sound and immediately said, "Breakfast will be ready soon. President Stone can sit there and wait a moment." Harrison's eye color instantly darkened, sitting silently on the sofa, occasionally lifting his eyes to glance at the kitchen, slowly moving his gaze away. When Stella came out with breakfast, Harrison put down his phone and glanced at the nutritious breakfast she brought. He smiled satisfactorily because these were all things he liked to eat. So Stella still remembered. Did this mean that in her heart, his position still existed? Was there still a place for him? He took a bite of the sandwich and drank a sip of milk, slowly said, "Call me Harry from now on." Stella paused, hesitating before remembering Harrison's demand back then not to refuse, but, sure enough, Harrison glared at her, "I didn't discuss it with you." The implication was there was no right to refuse. Less than 3 bites in, Harrison's phone rang. He picked up the phone, saw those 3 words, and his face changed. "What's wrong?" Fiona hesitated for a while before finally speaking. "I have something to discuss with you." Seeing Stella standing there, and Fiona proposing a private meeting, Harrison's subconscious reaction was to refuse. Whatever it is, can't it be said on the phone? Hearing Fiona humming and hawing, and seeing Stella wanting to leave, Harrison impatiently hung up directly. Quickly said, "Where are you going?" Stella turned around in astonishment. "I just wanted to give some privacy." However, this was the first time Stella saw him look so cold towards Fiona. Harrison became unhappy instead. After all, the old Stella wasn't like this now. At least she should be angry, jealous, maybe snatch his phone and curse back. "Another woman calls me, shouldn't you be jealous?" Stella was even calmer than Harrison. "Just a transaction, why should I be jealous?" His voice deepened slightly, restraining excitement. "So you aren't willing to even pretend a little?" She frowned, as if she couldn't understand Stella's thought at all, but still retorted, "Harry, if pretending to be jealous can make you happy, then I'll pretend next time." "You!" Harrison slammed the table fiercely, directly scaring Stella into a shudder. Immediately, Harrison took his phone and went out. Stella cleaned up the breakfast eaten only a few bites, throwing it into the trash can. That day, Harrison came back at 11 at night. When he returned, he saw Stella still staying in the living room. The stifled anger in his heart instantly reignited. He drank some wine, emboldened himself to enter the villa, closing the door behind him. Hearing the noise, Stella immediately stood up from the sofa. Seeing Harrison walk unsteadily towards her, the smell of alcohol getting stronger, she guessed Harrison went out drinking. "Why aren't you jealous? You should be jealous, Stella, be jealous, okay?" Harrison walked in front of Stella and started touching her. Helplessly, Stella could only stabilize him temporarily. "Okay, I am jealous." Unexpectedly, Harrison took advantage of the situation to press her down, holding Stella's neck, which was so thin only bones remained, with one hand, a flash of heartache in his eyes. He planted a kiss on Stella's slightly red, thin lips. At first, this kiss was gentle, careful, carrying a tentative meaning. Stella. When she started struggling, the entanglement of their lips became more lingering, more intense. Stella finally gave up futile resistance, letting Harrison wander willfully. When Harrison relaxed his guard, Stella pushed him away at once. "You're drunk." His eyes suddenly covered with a layer of mist, brows knitted together, looking aggrieved and confused. Looking at Harrison like this, Stella felt that pushing him away was like her mistake. She really couldn't stop asking, "How much did you drink?" Harrison didn't answer a word, just stared straight at Stella. Helplessly, Stella had to walk forward slowly, but prepared to dodge back at any time. Suddenly, Harrison spoke. "Stella Sterling, why did you leave 5 years ago?" His voice choked, and a lot of mist accumulated in his eyes. Stella finally struggled for a while about whether he was drunk or not, finally seeing the tears in those eyes, judged that he was really drunk. But if he wasn't drunk, he shouldn't have done something outrageous like forcing a kiss. Thinking that a drunk person should forget what happened now when they wake up. Stella said without scruples, 5 years ago, the Sterling family went bankrupt and owed a buttload of debt. My dad and mom both committed suicide because of this matter. When I knew this news, I was the only one left in the family. My dad gave me a sum of money and told me to go abroad to hide. Harrison's eyes moved, taking a step forward, almost unsteady. Stella immediately stepped forward to support him. His eyes flashed downward, tone grave. "So you proposed breaking up with me?" For a moment, Stella felt Harrison seemed sober, stunned. "You," but immediately heard Harrison shout, "Do you know I went crazy looking for you back then? Every day besides looking for you, just looking for you, I also had to comfort myself that you didn't mean what you said, that you were lying to me." Talking and talking, Harrison's gravity became unstable, and Stella couldn't hold him, could only drag him to lie on the sofa. Harrison happened to lie on her shoulder, then muttering to himself in a low voice, "I kept looking forward to the end of those 3 years, not because I didn't like you. I just wanted to use the name of liking, not this transaction, as a premise. I don't like people saying I don't deserve you. I wanted to prove I could stand by your side, but it was too late. You didn't want me anymore. Why didn't you want me anymore?" Stella's heart twitched with pain. When she said those words back then, wasn't she suffering just as he was? But what could she do? If she had stayed by Harrison's side back then, who knew what excessive things those debt collectors would do? Moreover, at that time, Stella wasn't sure who Harrison really loved. When Harrison faced Fiona, she had seen a gentleness he never showed her. And she heard many people whispering. Even Stella herself knew Harrison had that kind of unyielding character. If Mrs. Stone hadn't been sick, she feared money couldn't have bought his 3 years. It was all involuntary. Who could blame whom for being cruel? I did not want you. I was scared. Scared there would be danger if they were together. Scared Harrison didn't like her. Also scared he would despise and destitute her. So she chose to leave. Stella looked at the clock on the wall. It was very late. Just as she was about to call Harrison to go to bed, she found Harrison had fallen asleep. Stella tried to shake Harrison awake, but once a drunk person falls asleep, the chances of waking them are slim. Seeing no reaction from Harrison, she simply slept on the sofa with him for a while. Sleeping until broad daylight, Stella felt sore all over her body. Opening her eyes, she saw Harrison beside her, rubbing his head with closed eyes. Stella sat up. "If you don't feel well, go rest in the room for a while. I'll make you hangover soup." Harrison's dry throat spoke very hoarsely. "It's okay, I'll be fine in a bit." Seeing this, Stella immediately poured a glass of water for Harrison, then asked tentatively, "Harry, do you remember what you said last night?" Looking at her expectant eyes, Harrison deliberately pretended to forget, shaking his head. "Don't remember? I shouldn't have said anything, right?" Learning that Harrison didn't remember what happened last night, Stella breathed a sigh of relief. "No, you didn't say anything." "That's good." Since that night, Stella and Harrison seemed to return to the past. Harrison specially took leave to go shopping with Stella, just to have more time alone with her. He rarely lost his temper anymore. When eating, he would even pick up food for Stella. The way Stella and Harrison got along became more and more relaxed, really resembling a couple truly in love. But on this day, Harrison pecked Stella on the forehead, said he was going on a business trip for 3 days and would be back soon. Stella smiled and hummed, "I'll wait for you." On the first day Harrison left, Stella was bored enough to just miss him. By the last day, sitting in the living room, she heard knocking outside. Probably too happy, she completely didn't think that if it were Harrison returning, he wouldn't ring the doorbell. Stella looked at Fiona standing at the door, then strutting in, sitting on the sofa and saying, "The way you look now somewhat resembles that arrogant and domineering Miss Sterling from 5 years ago." Fiona deliberately emphasized her tone just to hit the unforgettable pain in Stella's heart. She sighed, eyes dimming, "If you came today just to mock me, I suggest you don't waste your breath. I've heard these words enough, they have no effect on me." Fiona raised her eyebrows. "Fine, I didn't come to humiliate you this time anyway. I just wanted to say, how does it feel to be a kept mistress? You don't really think H keeps you because he likes you, do you? When you bought him back then, do you know how many dirty looks he suffered? Do you know how he got through it?" Stella knew, so after that night of Harrison's confession, she resolved to make up for doubting Harrison's sincerity back then. "You aren't H, how do you know he doesn't love me?" Fiona didn't expect Stella to remain so calm after hearing these words. Indeed, Harrison's crazy search for Stella over these 5 years didn't look completely innocent. "But why her?" she sneered. "So you naively think you can be with H. H is now a self-made tycoon, a business wizard with extreme talent. You are just a waitress with nothing. What qualifications do you have to be with H? Do you deserve him?" Every word she said stabbed into Stella's heart. Yes, the current her was still burdened with so much debt, having nothing. Even if Harrison wanted to be with her now, what about the future? Would Harrison's parents agree to him being with her? Fiona saw Stella starting to waver, and her goal was considered achieved. She tugged the corner of her mouth smugly, then smiled. "I am the one well matched with him. Now Auntie Stone's illness is cured too. H doesn't need you at all. Keeping you by his side now is just to take revenge on you." Actually thinking about it, what Fiona said was also right. But Stella didn't have the strength to argue with Fiona, so she went directly up to the second floor and locked herself in the room. She didn't even know when Harrison came back. Seeing Stella not in the living room, Harrison went up to the second floor. He knocked politely, planning to open the door, but it was locked from inside. "Stella, I'm back." Inside, Stella showed no ripples, just answered faintly. Such an attitude was exceptionally abnormal. Clearly, it wasn't like this 3 days ago. Harrison lowered his hand, his tone becoming puzzled. "What's wrong with you?" Stella finally responded. "Nothing. I'll go down to cook later. I want to be alone for a while now." Confused, Harrison could only go downstairs temporarily. Then he lit a cigarette, eyes red, put it to his mouth, and took several fierce puffs. In the smoke, he seemed to see that spirited Stella from back then thought of Stella's words earlier. He threw the whole cigarette on the floor and stomped it out. Seeing the butler sweeping outside, he immediately called him over. "During my business trip, who did Madam see?" The butler didn't react for a moment, then realized Harrison's Madam referred to Stella. Madam didn't see anyone. Just Miss Fletcher came to find Madam and said a few words. "Fiona Fletcher?" Harrison narrowed his eyes, looking at the phone on the table with a cold and evil glint. He really didn't expect Fiona would actually come to the door. Although he couldn't guess exactly what she said, Harrison was certain it definitely wasn't anything good. He picked up the phone and called Fiona. The speed of answering over there was surprisingly fast. seemingly happy that Harrison initiated the call. Harrison frowned tightly, seeming very disgusted and intolerant of Fiona's unreasonable troublemaking and sowing dissension. "You came to my house." Fiona didn't expect the first sentence awaited to be an interrogation. Without thinking, it must be for Stella. "Is Stella Sterling that important to you?" Harrison walked to the balcony, his eyes filled with oppressive coldness. One hand gripped the railing tightly, gradually tightening. Originally, he was reasonably tolerant of Fiona, even accompanying her in her nonsense before. But now knowing she hurt Stella, Harrison's attitude towards Fiona in his heart, which had long been numb, now felt like being cut by broken blades stroke by stroke. It was telling him that all this was superfluous. Fiona's existence would sooner or later be an obstacle to him being with Stella. "Yes, she is very important to me." Clearly, Fiona was not satisfied with Harrison's answer. "I don't believe it. If she is important to you, why make a transaction with her?" Harrison scoffed lightly. "That's between me and her, why should I explain to you? Fiona Fletcher, you don't really think that in these 5 years I fell in love with you, do you? I was just using you as a shield." After saying this, Harrison hung up the phone, not even giving Fiona a chance to speak again. In the evening, Stella brought the cooked food to the table, then without saying a word, ate seriously. However, finding Harrison hadn't moved his chopsticks, she looked up and saw him quietly taking a puff of smoke. Behind the smoke, his face was deep as the sea. He seemed to steal a glance at her. Originally, she really didn't want to care, but watching Harrison not eating and smoking one after another, she still said, "Harry, time to eat, stop smoking." Hearing Stella's words, Harrison immediately put away the pack of cigarettes, picked up the bowl on the table, and began to eat with his head down. Stella knew Harrison was also angry because of her sudden change in attitude, but actually, she didn't want to be like this either. Didn't want to delay Harrison like this. "You don't want me anymore?" She recalled that sentence from his drunken night. The man tightened the hand holding the bowl, pretending to glance at her inadvertently. Just for a moment, not waiting for her reaction, he looked at the food on the table. Stella shook her head. "I thought about it. Actually, the transaction between us two is unfair. You can't get any benefits from me. I don't do unequal trades. Let this transaction end here." Harrison bit his lip tightly, put down the tableware in his hand, and looked directly at Stella. "Stella Sterling, is your heart made of iron?" Stella blinked her sore eyes, not answering. He paused, continuing. "It was like this 5 years ago, and today, it's still like this. Do you not want to stay with me that much?" Stella looked at Harrison, lowering his stance like this. A wave of sourness surged in her heart, but telling herself, "You did it 5 years ago, you can do it again 5 years later." She whispered, "Yes." The words about liking you 5 years ago were all lies. I just wanted to know what it looked like for an unattainable flower like you to fall from the altar. I was just playing. If these words were said 5 years ago, maybe Harrison would have believed them. Unfortunately, no matter what Stella said now, he wouldn't believe it. He wouldn't believe a single word coming out of her mouth anymore, especially words about not loving him. "I don't care if you were playing or whatever other reason. Since you agreed, you have to continue being with me. If you don't want to be with me, I will lock you here until you don't want to leave." Stella recalled Harrison's decisive words just now. They didn't sound like a joke. Harrison becoming like this was actually half caused by herself. If not for that astonishing glimpse back then, Stella wouldn't have set her sights on Harrison. If she had just helped with the medical treatment without proposing dating conditions. But who knew what would happen in the future? Even if she could start over, Stella would still choose to do so. In the following days, after cooking, she returned to her room. She didn't eat with Harrison, nor did she say a word to him. They continued the Cold War for several days like this, until Stella's phone notified her of an important date on the calendar. In a few days, it would be Harrison's birthday. Stella still remembered the 2 birthdays she spent with Harrison previously. Although she didn't give him very memorable memories, at least they were happy at that time. Just haven't seen him for so many years, wondered if Harrison's preference for those small gadgets had changed. She planned to ask the butler. The butler said, "Young Master Stone's preferences haven't changed, just rarely touches them anymore." Indeed, the current Harrison was busy with startups and work, having no other time to play. Then, does he have anything he likes or likes to do recently? The butler thought for a long time, Nothing he specifically likes, except every time young Master Stone is unhappy, he stays in your room all day. So, that room of hers was really specially prepared by Harrison, regardless of whether she would return or whether she liked him. Harrison prepared such a room belonging to Stella. It was like there was always a place in his heart belonging to her. In the end, Stella didn't ask further because continuing to ask, she was really afraid the butler would say something else, then making her heart soften. But Stella still concentrated on preparing a gift for Harrison. Only compared to others, these gifts were insignificant. Those people came directly to Harrison's house to give gifts. Stella looked at those expensive gifts one by one, then looked at her own cheap safety amulet. The thing she wanted to give out was just held tightly in her hand. Suddenly, Stella saw a familiar figure. Fiona walked in holding a cake. The moment Harrison saw Fiona, his face darkened too. Thinking she came to make trouble again, Harrison didn't give Fiona a good face at all. Learning that Fiona just wanted to give a birthday cake, Harrison still maintained vigilance towards her, but kept Fiona to eat some cake. "I really came to apologize this time. I shouldn't have spoken like that. I'm sorry, Sister Stella." Stella tried hard to suppress the nausea surging in her stomach. "It's okay." Immediately, Fiona opened the cake, intending to let Harrison make a wish and eat it, because she said she had other things to do and couldn't stay too long. But when Stella saw the mango on the cake, she immediately found an excuse. "I don't really like eating cake, I won't eat." Harrison looked at Stella's eyes with mixed feelings. Fiona insisted on cutting a piece for Stella, still saying, "Oh my, Sister Stella, just eat a tiny bit. Today is H's birthday after all, you won't be so disrespectful, right?" Stella hesitated, eventually agreeing to eat just a little bit. She looked at this mango cake, still hesitating, as if waiting for something. In the end, not waiting for those words, Stella finally took a bite with a fork, also prepared herself. Not long after, Harrison saw Stella's face turn pale, sweat the size of beans rolling down from her forehead. He was frightened by Stella like this and quickly walked to Stella's side. Immediately saw the dense red spots on her body. "You are allergic to mango?" Stella gave a difficult hum, her breathing becoming rapid. Harrison immediately carried Stella to the car and drove her to the hospital. In less than 10 minutes, Harrison arrived at a nearby hospital and carried the limp Stella directly in. Medical staff immediately surrounded them, sending her into the emergency room for examination. He dared not go in. Harrison didn't know if the mango Fiona bought was a coincidence or intentional, but he had always forgotten Stella was allergic to mango. Also remembered, he once cut mango for Stella to eat. At that time, seeing Stella not eating the fruit he cut, he thought Stella simply despised it. It turned out Stella was allergic to mango. Only then did he gradually believe Stella was truly good to him. She didn't even blame him once for this matter. Finally, summoning courage, Harrison walked in. The female doctor let go of Stella, signaling the nurse to give Stella an injection. Stella was extremely dizzy, having almost no sensation, only feeling her heart beating terribly fast. Soon, the sharp needle pierced into the blood vessel, and a tiny pain came from the arm. In just 15 minutes, the feeling of dizziness slowly faded, and the heartbeat gradually stabilized. "How is she?" Stella returned to a normal state. She slowly got up from the bed, looking at the female doctor gratefully. "Thank you, doctor, I'm much better now." "No problem, but..." The female doctor looked calm, asking puzzledly, "Miss, don't you know what you are allergic to?" Hearing this, Stella paused, daring not look up at Harrison outside the door. Harrison looked at Stella gravely. Finally, he answered the female doctor's question. "I'm sorry, it's my fault. I forgot she can't eat mango." Hearing Harrison's voice, the female doctor looked back, then complained, "You are her boyfriend, right? Boyfriends need to be more attentive. Forgetting what your girlfriend is allergic to, careful someone steals her away." "Okay, I'll remember." Harrison walked to the bedside, staring wordlessly at the red rash on Stella's body that hadn't completely faded. Stella lowered her eyes and reached out to cover her neck. "It's fine now." He looked away, his eyes very dim. "Why didn't you say you were allergic to mango?" "I forgot, so you just didn't say?" Actually, it wasn't that she didn't want to say, but because Harrison had said a sentence. "You said, don't refuse your requests." But Harrison had never said he wanted Stella to eat that piece of cake. He instantly got angry, just because of this. Stella cast an indifferent look at him. Otherwise, didn't you also make me not refuse what Fiona Fletcher said? In the silence, Harrison glimpsed a red object covered under the quilt from the corner of his eye. He slowly lifted the quilt and saw the full appearance of that thing. A small sachet with the word peace embroidered on it. Before Stella could take it, Harrison grabbed it first. Then, carefully examining the small gadget in his hand, the workmanship looked very rough at a glance. He didn't even need to guess. This definitely wasn't bought. Harrison confronted Stella with the safety amulet in hand. You embroidered this yourself. Stella gave a soft hum. Then why didn't you give it to me? She just felt her gift was too shabby. Stella looked directly at Harrison, distorting her inner thoughts. Because I felt, compared to others, you wouldn't care for this gift of mine. Harrison looked at Stella in disbelief. In your eyes, am I a person who loves vanity? Her indifferent appearance seemed to pull Harrison back to reality. Stella was deliberately provoking him again. Harrison restrained the displeasure on his face, even turning anger into a smile. Thank you, I like your gift very much. She was stunned, meeting those eyes that anticipated everything. Not long after, Fiona actually appeared in the ward, hypocritically coming to inquire about Stella's condition. Even if Fiona really didn't know about her mango allergy, coming to the ward could only be with bad intentions. Harrison, originally wanting to leave because of Stella's deliberate provocation, but having nowhere to vent his anger, found Fiona crashing right onto his gunpoint. What are you doing here? If you hadn't insisted on giving Stella that cake, she wouldn't have had an allergic reaction. Fiona explained again that she absolutely didn't know Stella was allergic to mango. This was just an accident. And Harrison himself didn't know. If anyone was to blame, it could only be Harrison. Stella had a headache watching them argue back and forth. If you want to continue, go outside and argue. Now both of them fell silent. Actually, there was no need to blame anyone. It was just Stella wanting to find a reason to convince herself to leave, and incidentally let Harrison give up on her. Just that the current result seemed completely different from what Stella expected. It even deviated severely from the course. Not only did Harrison not get angry about this matter, he started buying things for Stella like crazy, almost filling the house. At noon today. Just finished lunch, Harrison said he wanted to take her out for a stroll again. Stella refused without thinking. Harrison just finished putting on his suit, paused while buttoning up, turned his head and asked, "Why not go?" Stella waved her hand at him, signaling him to go into her room and look. She opened the closet, stuffed full of clothes. The dressing table was filled with cosmetics. There were so many shoes the shoe rack couldn't hold them, and a cabinet specifically for bags. Actually, I don't need so many things at all. Harrison twitched the corner of his mouth. It seemed he did buy a bit too much. He immediately changed his idea, planning to take Stella out for entertainment activities, not buying things. Stella rejected Harrison again. Don't you need to work? Harrison completely gave Stella no chance to get rid of him. No need, don't you know the chairman of the company doesn't need to manage things? If she didn't know what a chairman did, Stella would have really believed his nonsense. But Stella could never out stubborn Harrison. After all, there was still the transaction. Buying things could be refused because there were too many, but going out to play, Stella had no way to refuse. The driver drove, Harrison and Stella sat in the back seat. As for where to play, Harrison didn't ask her where she wanted to go at all, because even if asked, Stella would probably answer there was nothing she wanted to play. Considering Stella used to be Miss Sterling, she probably grew up playing those amusement park projects. Harrison simply took Stella to a place she had 100 never been to. Stella looked out the window, finding the road more and more remote. Couldn't imagine where the fun place Harrison mentioned was. Finally, the driver stopped the car. Stella looked at the side where there was nothing but a kindergarten and frowned immediately. You want me to play in a kindergarten? Harrison nodded. Yes, there are slides and swings next to it. I also asked the school teacher to specially arrange a class for you to play with the children. Anyway, it wasn't a difficult task. Hearing it was arranged, Stella reluctantly walked into the kindergarten. The children inside were taking a nap. From a distance, she could see those children's chubby cheeks. Just looking from afar gave birth to the desire to pinch them. The kindergarten teacher saw them and invited them into the classroom to sit first. The teacher saw they were a talented man and beautiful woman, so she asked, "President Stone, is this your girlfriend? Very imposing, very beautiful. Stella was praised right upon meeting, lowering her head somewhat embarrassedly. You flatter me. Harrison was secretly delighted seeing Stella's reaction, then explained to the teacher. Her name is Stella Sterling. My girlfriend is a bit shy. The teacher immediately leaned close to Stella. What's there to be shy about? We're all women. Besides, every word I said is true. You are very beautiful to begin with. The children will definitely like you when they see you. Stella hesitated for a while. Really? Yes, you'll know how much the children like you later. The female teacher took Stella to roughly recognize the children's names, although she said she might not remember many. But the teacher said it was just to give a slight impression, not saying she must remember everyone's names clearly now. Roughly half an hour later, a chubby child trotted over to the female teacher's side. Run a step, and the chubby, tender flesh on both sides moved once. It was extremely cute. His small hands were still rubbing his eyes. When the child saw Stella sitting beside them, his sleepy eyes instantly turned into starry eyes. Seeing the child's reaction, the female teacher said as expected, "See." Stella was somewhat stunned, then tentatively extended her arms towards the child. The child was only surprised for a moment, then rushed into Stella's embrace as if mesmerized. This was Stella's first time holding a child. Small, chubby, the feeling was wonderful. For some reason, seeing this scene, Harrison imagined a series of pictures in his mind. If they hadn't let go 5 years ago, would their child be this big too? If they had a child, would Stella stop thinking about leaving? But soon Harrison cut off this thought. This child started introducing himself to Stella. His 2 small chubby cheeks flushed red. Sister, my name is Gavin. I want to marry a girl as beautiful as sister in the future. Stella couldn't help but curl her lips in a smile, scraping his nose bridge. Gavin, how old are you? Thinking about taking a wife already? Gavin patted his chest, looking very proud. I'm already 4, Stella laughed heartily. Harrison watched her eyes curve into crescents, looking like a spring breeze, and rarely pulled his lips into a smile too. Not long after, the other children also woke up one after another. After everyone arrived, the female teacher asked the children to sit properly, then introduced Stella to them. Shall Sister Stella teach you a class today? This group of children was extremely happy seeing the beautiful sister. Even if it was class, they were still very happy. Seeing this situation, the female teacher couldn't help but feel a little jealous. But what kind of class should she teach? This was really Stella's blind spot. She didn't know what children would like, and she didn't have any presentable special skills. Until Harrison mentioned from the side, Stella, don't you know how to play the piano? Piano? Yes, she used to know how to play the piano, and she had participated in some music competitions with the piano. But that was a long time ago. It had been at least 5 years since she touched a piano. If she played now, it probably wouldn't be a tune worth listening to. I haven't played the piano for a long time. I probably can't play anymore. The female teacher also smoothed things over for Harrison. There happened to be a piano in the classroom. It's okay. As long as you knew how before, you definitely won't forget it completely. A musician's memory is carved into their bones. Because of this sentence, Stella walked to that piano, then sat down slowly, attentively feeling the sensation of playing the piano from the past. Maybe what they said was indeed right. When her hands were placed on the piano keys, that feeling from back then instantly occupied all of Stella's thoughts. The movements of her hands seemed to be playing by themselves. Stella didn't make any extra thoughts, and the expression on her face gradually turned from self-doubt to confidence. Those slender fingers leaped back and forth on the black and white keys, just like dancing keys. The person had merged with the instrument. Sounds of music echoed in the kindergarten classroom. The children couldn't help but start swaying with the rhythm of the music, completely immersed in the story told by those musical notes. After the song ended, everyone was applauding her. Stella seemed to have regained a bit of confidence and feeling in this song. Gavin immediately ran to Stella's side, then spoke everyone's thoughts. Wow, the song sister played sounds so good. The female teacher also gave Stella a very high evaluation. Stella, I think you can go participate in international music competitions. Stella shook her head. For that kind of competition, I can't even pass the entry requirements, let alone go in to compete. Actually, this was the first time Harrison heard Stella play the piano. Previously, he had only occasionally seen that piano in Stella's villa, never seeing Stella play it with his own eyes. Unexpectedly, even not touching the piano for 5 years, the music played was still so refreshing to the heart. In the end, it was because Stella didn't recognize her own ability and wasn't confident enough. Immediately following, Stella and Harrison played Eagle Catches Chicks with the children. Harrison looked the strongest, so he played the vicious eagle. Stella and the female teacher took turns playing the mother hen. Harrison certainly wanted to catch the chicks at the fastest speed, but the competent mother hen instantly spread her wings, struggling to protect the chicks, blocking left and defending right. The children playing chicks behind also followed, swaying left and right, dodging east and west, and couldn't help laughing loudly in the back. Seeing no opportunity to exploit, Harrison prepared a diversion. Children are the easiest to trick. Pointing directly at the sky, he exclaimed loudly, "Look, there's an airplane." Several children were fooled, distracted without any guard, looking for the airplane Harrison mentioned in the sky. And Harrison took this opportunity to suddenly pounce behind the flock of chickens. Several quick-reacting children immediately listened to Stella's words and squatted down. Generally, in such a situation, as long as the child squats down, according to the rules of the game, the eagle cannot catch the chick. Those smart children saw through Harrison's trick at once, complaining, "Brother Harry is so bad actually tricking children." Harrison smiled. "All is fair in war." Stella called the children to stand up, and Harrison entered attack mode again, but it always felt like Harrison was going easy on them. In the end, the eagle didn't catch a single chick. The children were extremely happy, all saying Sister Stella played very well. Today was probably the happiest day for this group of children and Stella. When leaving, that group of children reluctantly sent Stella and Harrison off, especially Gavin, still shouting for Sister Stella to come play next time. Harrison specifically asked Stella if she was happy today. After all, at the beginning, when Stella learned she was coming to the kindergarten to play, she wasn't particularly happy. But soon, he got the satisfied answer. Actually, what Stella was happiest about was finding back that feeling from back then the moment she played the piano. It was as if she had returned to the time when she was still Miss Sterling. Her family was still there. Actually, that was enough. In the car, Stella kept watching the pedestrians coming and going outside the window. Occasionally, she could see people taking their children home. For a moment, tears blurred her vision. Such a life was something she couldn't get no matter how she fantasized. From childhood to adulthood, she went to school by herself. They would only arrange a driver or butler to send her to school. Rarely could they spare time to accompany her. Actually, money wasn't very important. Stella hoped they would spend a little more time with her. Harrison turned his head and noticed Stella's state was wrong. Vaguely, he could see something glistening in the corner of her eye. He asked softly, "What are you thinking about?" But he didn't intend to expose her. Stella didn't turn back, sniffing and answering, thinking about what to eat tonight. Harrison felt Stella's answer was very down to earth. "Then what do you want to eat?" "We'll eat out." She actually hadn't thought about eating out. "Thought you played all day, probably don't want to busy yourself cooking." Stella didn't answer, so Harrison took it as her agreement. Harrison specifically looked for nearby restaurants on his phone. Roughly selected restaurants with dishes Stella loved among them, choosing back and forth several times, finally making a decision. He took Stella to the nearest one just right. Stella looked at the dishes being served one by one, distracted for a moment. Weren't these all dishes she loved to eat before? Hard for Harrison to still remember after 5 years. "Eat." Harrison even picked up vegetables into Stella's bowl. Stella said a faint thank you. Actually, these dishes were indeed what she loved to eat before, just haven't touched them for so long, even she herself forgot what these dishes tasted like. She hesitated for a while, then picked up a piece and sent it into her mouth. It was actually quite delicious. He was actually thinking what to do to make Stella return to her former self. Although money could be earned again, and the emotional cracks between them could be repaired. But the scars in Stella's heart were slow to recover, as if the two people she loved most would never return. This matter really couldn't be made up for in any way, unless in her heart there was something more important, and she let go. Just that such pain, how could it be easily let go? Harrison only cared about picking dishes for her, but didn't move his own chopsticks. Stella was eating, lowered her head and asked, "Why aren't you eating?" Harrison came back to his senses, then picked up some vegetables and took a bite. On this matter, he still had to spend a lot of thought. Immediately, Harrison's phone rang. He got up and went to the window to answer the call. Stella turned to look at Harrison, feeling why answering a phone call was so mysterious. Curiosity of wanting to hear but not being able to. She ate alone absent-mindedly. Harrison looked at the darkening sky outside, speaking coldly. "I don't care what method you use, you must drag those people out for me." Silence on the other end for a long time, eventually accepting this task. When he sat back in his seat, he found Stella had almost finished eating. "Are you full?" Harrison asked. Stella hummed, then wanted to leave. Harrison planned to go back with Stella. Stella looked at the rice in his bowl. "You haven't finished eating. I can go back by myself first." How could he be willing to go back alone? "It's okay, I won't eat anymore." Stella stopped, asking solemnly, "Are you full? Tell the truth." Harrison actually wanted to know what the sentence, "not full," would exchange for. Was it her leaving by herself, or would she make an exception and sit here waiting for him? He said, "No." As a result, he saw Stella sit back in her seat, then stare at him. So, was she going to wait for him to finish eating before leaving? Sometimes Harrison really didn't understand why Stella was sometimes very good to him and sometimes very alienated. This feeling of hot and cold made Harrison extremely insecure, like he had never possessed her. Gaining and losing. These days Harrison seemed to be getting busier. Stella could basically only see him for a while during meals. Stella didn't know what Harrison was busy with, nor did she actively ask. She knew Harrison would come back every night, so she would prepare meals. Even if she fell asleep waiting, she would leave the light on for him. This weekend, he seemed to have a day off. When Stella woke up, she saw Harrison sitting in the living room reading a newspaper. Even so, Stella didn't say many words to Harrison, just cooking on time. After cooking lunch, she planned to go out and buy some groceries. All the way she was thinking if she ran away now, ran far away. Was the chance of being found by Harrison very small? Could she leave then? Just where could she go after leaving? She had nothing. This centennial seemed so big, but in reality, it was very small. Otherwise, she and Harrison wouldn't have met again. On Stella's way home after buying groceries, she was suddenly stopped by big men who seemed to have been waiting for a long time in front. Everyone held a wooden stick in their hands. Stella subconsciously wanted to run away, but this group of people came aggressively. It was obvious at a glance that they had been eyeing her for a long time to specifically lie in wait here. Otherwise, how could they know Stella would pass this street? The timing was so precise. Stella originally thought that after hiding abroad for 5 years, these creditors would forget this matter. Stella was still too naive. These people probably valued money more than their own lives. What exactly do you want? They held the sticks in their hands, adding some bully aura to themselves. What do we want? Of course, waiting for you to pay back the money. Harrison, waiting at home for Stella to come back and cook, heard knocking, then looked through the peephole. The one ringing the doorbell outside was actually Mrs. Stone. Harrison opened the door immediately. "Mom, why did you come suddenly without notifying me? What if I wasn't home?" Mrs. Stone waved her hand. "Even if you weren't home, the butler would be. I just came to deliver some peaches picked today. Very sweet." "Thanks, Mom." Harrison simply asked Mrs. Stone to stay for a meal, incidentally making a phone call with his mobile. Wanted Stella to buy a bit more groceries back, then eat a good meal. As a result, after calling several times, no one answered on that end. Stella never missed his calls, even when angry, but these days they were clearly fine. At this moment, 2 thoughts flashed in Harrison's mind. Either she encountered some thorny issue, or Stella ran away. Harrison immediately took the car keys to look for her personally while calling Stella's phone. Calling a total of more than 20 times, that side neither answered nor hung up. Harrison cursed lightly. "Damn it," then hit the steering wheel heavily. Bang, they hit the wall with a stick, as if saying if she wanted to go back, she could only give money. If she didn't give money, she would end up like the wall. Stella trembled. It wasn't that she didn't want to give money, just that she had no cash on her and no money in her phone either. The money Harrison gave her, Stella had already transferred out. "I really don't have that much money to pay back the debt. Give me a little more time, okay?" This sentence stunned everyone. "You follow that President Stone all the time, how could you have no money? Do you think we are fools? Can we be dismissed by such a lie from you?" Immediately, Stella showed them her bag. There was really nothing inside, but just this wasn't enough. The group looked at each other, eyes gradually becoming lewd, then snickered. "I don't care if you really have no money or are faking it, you have to find a way to get it for me. We can give you a little more time, but you have to let us have some fun first. Perform well, and I'll give you a little more time." Seeing those rough men about to rush forward, Stella had no ability to refute, could only keep backing away. But at the end of the retreat was only a wall. This was far worse than being with Harrison, truly terrible. Just when Stella despaired, closing her eyes, she only heard a wail. When those people delayed rushing up, Stella opened her eyes and saw Harrison fighting with them. Harrison snatched a wooden stick from their hands. Fighting one against many seemed effortless, but Stella was worried for Harrison watching. Finally, those people realized Harrison was basically someone who didn't care about his life, so they stopped and persuaded. "Who are you? I'm just looking for her to pay back debt, didn't plan to risk my own life." Hearing this, Harrison stopped his movements, then walked straight to Stella, raising an eyebrow and asking, "How much do you owe them?" The leader of the group said, "1 million. Harrison asked them for a bank card without saying a word, then called the company assistant. "I just sent you a bank card number. Transfer 1 million into it." Not long after hanging up, their phones received the payment transfer message. Then all five looked at Stella and Harrison in surprise. "Someone can pay back the money. Why didn't you say earlier?" The people who received the money left smiling. Harrison looked at Stella hiding behind him, shaking all over. Actually, he was still very angry in his heart. Angry that she didn't tell him earlier about the debt. For this amount of money, he could have just helped pay it back. If paid back, she wouldn't have encountered such danger. "Are you okay?" Stella shook her head. She was fine, but Harrison had just fought with them. "What about you? Not injured, right?" Harrison let out a rough breath, still very concerned about the consequences if he hadn't made it in time. Also angry that Stella didn't say anything. So all the way inside the car, they didn't say a word. Stella looked at his furrowed brows, biting her lip lightly, not knowing how to explain. When arriving home, Harrison still actively got out to open the car door for Stella. Mrs. Stone in the house heard the sound and looked out the door. Mrs. Stone saw Harrison bring a woman back and was instantly attracted by the sight. The more she looked, the more familiar it seemed. The more she looked, the more she felt she had seen her somewhere before. After Stella entered the house, Mrs. Stone recognized who the woman returning with Harrison was. Wasn't that Stella Sterling? Stella also discovered Mrs. Stone sitting on the living room sofa. Suddenly, subconsciously wanted to avoid. After all, this déjà vu of meeting the parents made Stella very uneasy. Because once Mrs. Stone discovered they lived together, she would ask about many things. Family was a topic both parents would ask about before two people got married. And Stella was destined not to have such a simple and warm family. Mrs. Stone couldn't possibly accept a woman who still owed a buttload of debt outside as a daughter-in-law. But the reality seemed different from Stella's fantasy. Mrs. Stone seemed very happy. After seeing clearly that the girl beside Harrison was Stella, her face overflowed with happy and satisfied expressions. Patting his shoulder, she said, "I thought you hadn't enlightened for so many years. Turns out you were together with Stella long ago. Didn't even tell Mom about this matter, making me wonder all the time when you could find a girlfriend." Harrison listened to Mrs. Stone nagging beside him, not knowing how to explain for a moment. After thinking about it, felt it was better not to explain. "Wasn't it that I hadn't had time to tell you yet?" Unexpectedly, Mrs. Stone pulled Stella directly to sit on the sofa, touching her hand and saying, "Why thinner again, smelly brat, don't know to let Stella eat more?" Was this real? And why did Mrs. Stone have such a good impression of her? Could it be they all knew the truth from back then? Stella couldn't adapt to such enthusiastic Mrs. Stone for a moment, and also felt flattered. "No, it's just that my appetite hasn't been very good recently, so I got a tiny bit thinner." Harrison felt suffering but couldn't speak out at this moment, could only sigh secretly, then opened his mouth to say, "Mom, who exactly is your biological child?" Mrs. Stone hugged Stella tight. "Anyway, when Stella marries over, she is my biological child." But Mrs. Stone didn't seem to believe Stella's words, questioning and blaming this matter on Harrison. "You don't need to speak good words for this brat. I know it must be him working every day, then failing to take care of you." Harrison cast his gaze on Stella at this time. Stella avoided his gaze as expected. Harrison really wanted to say a sentence right now, but ultimately didn't say it. He wanted to say, "Actually, there's no need to determine Stella is your daughter-in-law so quickly. After all, Stella might not necessarily marry him." Seeing Mrs. Stone so happy, he didn't want to say these words to spoil the mood. But the headache-inducing thing came. It was really too late today, so Mrs. Stone planned to stay a night at his house. When Stella came out after showering, she met Mrs. Stone's indescribable gaze. Only then remembering, in Mrs. Stone's eyes, they were a couple. Would Mrs. Stone make them sleep in the same room tonight? Stella just wanted to flee the battle, immediately climbing up to the second floor, but unexpectedly was still stopped by Mrs. Stone. Then asked some words difficult to voice. "Do you and Harrison sleep together?" Stella hesitated for a long time until Harrison came out of the study. Harrison also heard Mrs. Stone's question, ears slightly red. Finally, it was Harrison who cheekily answered, "Yes, Stella sleeps in the same room with me." Stella just wanted to question a sentence, but hindered by Mrs. Stone being there, she could only compromise temporarily, praying in her heart that Harrison's sentence was just said to deal with Mrs. Stone. Then Mrs. Stone watched them go upstairs at the same time, then feeling somewhat uneasy, followed them upstairs, not leaving with relief until watching them enter the same room. Stella stood there, looking at Harrison, who was already lying on the bed, asking uncertainly, "Do we really have to sleep together today?" Harrison thought about it. Actually, he had thought about this day for a long time. After all, when making the transaction with Stella before, he had offered his chastity. "Yes, don't let my mom get suspicious." Stella sighed, remembering those demands of daily kisses and daily sleeping while hugging before. Harrison's demand was just something that could be done casually. Isn't it just sharing a bed? What's there to be afraid of? It's not like they haven't slept together before. Eyes closed, body laid down. The second day arrived. But fantasies are always beautiful, reality is still cruel. Stella slept beside Harrison, unable to fall asleep no matter what. She remembered she didn't have the problem of recognizing beds, just closed her eyes, hypnotizing herself in her heart. The more like this, Stella found she couldn't sleep even more. Suddenly, Harrison's hand rested on her body, scaring her into closing her eyes immediately. Immediately following, Harrison's low voice came from her ear. "Asleep?" Stella didn't answer, pretending she had already fallen asleep. Harrison started again after a long time. "I've actually thought about this day for a long time. In these 5 years, I haven't stopped thinking for a moment, thinking about you being able to stay by my side." His hand gently stroked Stella's long hair, "then being with you openly and honestly. Giving you a grandest wedding, telling everyone you are my, Harrison Stone's, wife. Giving you enough security. I'm here for everything." Stella didn't know when she fell asleep, only that when she woke up, Harrison was already gone. Going downstairs, she found Mrs. Stone had also left early. The entire villa was left with only Stella and the butler again. She recalled the words Harrison said in her ear last night, cheeks flushing red. But she knew, being like this would instead shake the decision in her heart. Stella chose to do something else to divert attention. She took a taxi by herself to the kindergarten Harrison took her to last time. Only this time, it was a male teacher accompanying the children. Originally, Stella thought forget it, intending to leave, when she heard a child inside calling her name. "Sister Stella," she stopped her footsteps. It was Gavin. Immediately following, that male teacher playing seriously with the children also discovered Stella outside. The male teacher came over and opened the door. Gavin rushed directly into Stella's arms. Seeing this scene, the male teacher came out and asked Stella, "Hello, are you Gavin's sister?" Stella smiled. Gavin's behavior indeed made it easy for people to think she was Gavin's sister. "I'm not. I just came here last time. Maybe Gavin likes me very much." Gavin nodded 5 or 6 times in a row. Gavin likes Sister Stella, the male teacher smiled, then introduced himself to Stella. "My name is Julian Cole, the children's music teacher." "My name is Stella Sterling." At this time, Gavin said, "Teacher Cole, let me tell you, Sister Stella can play the piano too, plays so nicely." Stella and Julian looked at each other in surprise. "You can play piano?" Almost in unison. Julian curled his lips in a smile, looking at Stella with a bit more appreciation. "If there's a chance, I'd like to hear Miss Sterling's piano skills." Hearing this sentence, Stella's face sank slightly. Teacher Cole, actually no need to address me like this, just call me Stella. Julian nodded, then invited her inside to sit, incidentally pouring a cup of tea for Stella. As long as not in class, Gavin stuck to Stella's side all the time. People who didn't know would really think Stella was his sister. Only when the class bell rang did he reluctantly return to the classroom. Julian looked at the piano over there. Is Stella interested in playing a tune? Stella smiled. I haven't played for a long time. How dare I show off my incompetence in front of Teacher Cole? Julian waved his hand. The most important thing in playing piano is artistic conception and confidence. It was okay last time, why can't it be now? Under Julian's persuasion, Stella still sat in front of the piano, suddenly having an idea. How about Teacher Cole plays with me? When Stella looked back, it caused Julian's heart to tremble, immediately agreeing to Stella's duet invitation. Julian didn't hear clearly what Stella said in his ear, just muddledly followed Stella's rhythm and started playing. Perhaps the simplest tacit understanding was just the same love for the piano. Without any words between them, nor any superfluous actions, they still played a tune that could amaze for a long time. After the song ended, applause rang out behind them. It was that female teacher from last time. Didn't expect you two could play such beautiful music together without needing practice. Stella and Julian answered modestly at the same time. It was still her playing well. The female teacher walked over. Okay, you both played well. Then she opened the photo album on her phone to show them. Inside was a photo of their duet just now. Although couldn't see faces, just two backs felt very atmospheric. Like two partners in perfect harmony, extremely tacit. Stella felt this photo could be kept as a memento, so she asked the female teacher to send the photo to her phone. Harrison came back very late today. Only as soon as he returned, Stella saw the packaging bag he was carrying. He took out a sequined fishtail dress from the bag. Stella looked at the gown Harrison chose for her, slightly stunned. This is, Harrison explained, clothes to wear to attend a banquet with me. Knowing refusal was useless, Stella didn't say anything about not wanting to go, just asked slightly who would be at this banquet. Harrison thought Stella's first sentence would be she wouldn't go. Feeling surprised. Just some bosses with business dealings. Stella took that dress into her room. She looked at the size and style of this dress, started trying it on. After confirming it fit, just as Stella wanted to take off the clothes, she saw Harrison had opened her unlatched door at some point, standing outside the door. A face full of satisfaction and appreciation. Realizing he was discovered, Harrison then whispered a compliment. Really beautiful. At the same time, there was the unease of a peeping Tom being caught. Stella felt both helplessness and amusement seeing him staring blankly. She wasn't angry, even somewhat shyly telling him to close the door and get out. I need to change clothes. Even though he had seen Stella wearing this starry fishtail dress tonight, Harrison was amazed again the next day. Stella was like a mermaid princess who sneaked out from the deep sea. That innocent, carefree appearance was exactly the appearance of Stella he hoped for. He felt Stella should be like this. All annoying things just needed him alone to shoulder. Harrison got out of the car and opened the car door for Stella. Like a knight, extending his hand, personally supporting Stella out of the car. Those media reporters waiting early outside the banquet venue pressed the shutters wildly at the two of them. The whispered praises from the reporters gradually made Stella confident. In the banquet hall, looking around, it was all some very experienced bosses in business. Young ones like Harrison were rare. Stella held Harrison's arm, and others were shocked by it. There were also a few who were probably Harrison's acquaintances, directly coming up to tease. No wonder not a single scandal for so many years. Turns out President Stone keeps himself clean, hiding beauty in a golden house. I was also wondering, how could a handsome guy like President Stone, and successful in career, not have beauties chasing him? I understand now, it's not that no beauties chase him, it's that President Stone's heart had a beauty long ago. Harrison and Stella looked at each other. That sweet smile made others feel like getting styes. Tusk, tusk, tusk. That person patted Harrison's shoulder. President Stone, when getting married, must invite me for wedding wine. I must freeload a good meal, eat you poor. Harrison nodded without thinking. Okay, definitely invite you to eat a good meal. It's settled then. Stella couldn't join the conversation, so she could only smile in agreement beside him. However, Harrison also noticed Stella was somewhat bored, so he told her she could go eat something over there first. Stella happened to be hungry, so she stopped standing with Harrison chatting. She picked up a pastry, took a small bite, then watched Harrison intently chatting with two presidents over there. Suddenly, a figure blocked her view. It was a man wearing a suit. Stella looked up at the man's face, feeling more and more familiar the more she looked. Wasn't this the blind date partner her mother arranged for her before? When she went abroad before, she met him once. At that time, she also clearly expressed her thoughts, so there was no leading him on. When did he return to the country? Louis Hayes sat unceremoniously next to Stella. Said, "Stella didn't expect to meet you here." Stella smiled slightly. She didn't resent Louis. Because after clarifying everything last time, Louis didn't show any misunderstanding or intention to pester her. "When did you return to the country?" Louis calculated the time in his mind. "Probably 3 or 4 months ago." Stella was still eating pastries, asking while eating. "Plan to develop domestically for the long term or just stay for a while?" This question, Louis thought for a moment, "Actually haven't thought about it." Stella didn't speak again. He sized up Stella once more, finding she was completely different from when she went abroad 5 years ago. "And you, have you transformed into a career woman?" Before Stella could answer, someone walked to her side, interrupting. "Stella, who is this?" Stella stood up, and Harrison hugged her waist even more rightfully. Louis looked at Harrison's hand, gaze dimming, then extended his hand nonchalantly, introducing himself. "Hello, I am Louis Hayes from Yangyan Group." Harrison looked down at his extended hand, said faintly, "I am Harrison Stone." Immediately shook hands very reluctantly. Out of curiosity, Louis still asked a sentence. "You are?" Harrison smiled slightly, then introduced solemnly. "This is my fiancé. You know each other?" Louis raised his eyebrows, then explained. "Yes, met once 5 years ago." Mentioning 5 years ago, Harrison's face sank. He couldn't help but let his imagination run wild in his mind, but didn't pursue asking, just tightened the hand holding her waist slightly. Stella frowned, realizing Harrison got jealous so easily, thinking she must explain properly on the way back later. Afterwards, Louis found an excuse and left. Louis just left on the front foot. Stella saw an uninvited guest walk out of the private room inside. Fiona hugged a middle-aged man's arm, swaggering out. Moreover, Fiona's father walked straight towards Stella's direction. No need to think, probably came for Harrison. Harrison lowered his head politely to greet. Mr. Fletcher's look at Harrison was also very appreciative. He nodded satisfactorily. "You really didn't disappoint me, good boy." He smiled and said, "Uncle flatters me." Stella initially thought Harrison and Mr. Fletcher had a very good relationship until Stella saw the look Harrison gave Mr. Fletcher. Actually wasn't that kind. Mr. Fletcher's gaze fell on Stella. "This is." Harrison and Stella didn't have time to speak before Fiona snatched the lead. "This is Stella Sterling. We are all from the same university." Just as the voice fell, Harrison immediately added a sentence. "Also my fiancé." This title of fiancé, although he just said it once, hearing it again now, he still felt his heart itch. The corners of his mouth overflowed with a smile he couldn't help. And Fiona's face instantly turned wrong, jealousy and disgust in her eyes no longer hidden. Because this time in such a scene, Harrison publicly stated Stella was his fiancée, basically set in stone. Fiona left her father alone and ran away in a fit of pique. Mr. Fletcher looked at the suddenly running Fiona in confusion. Said a sentence to Harrison about chatting next time. Mr. Fletcher turned and chased after her. It was getting late. Harrison took Stella back. In the car, Stella organized her language in her mind, opened her mouth and said, "That Louis Hayes was actually a blind date partner my mother arranged for me before, but I refused." Harrison couldn't help laughing, but deliberately suppressed the uncontrollable corners of his mouth, saying duplicitously, "Why tell me this?" Stella said weakly. "Isn't this fearing you'll overthink?" But after saying it, Stella realized why she subconsciously felt Harrison would be jealous, and she would worry. Harrison moved closer to Stella. Stella glanced sideways and saw Harrison smiling, breathing a sigh of relief. Seemed to be rejoicing that Harrison didn't think nonsense about anything else. Then Harrison also said, "I trust you. Actually no need to explain these, I was still a tiny bit jealous." Stella smiled helplessly, then seeing Harrison about to kiss down, immediately pushed him away. Harrison looked at Stella blankly. Only then did she muster the courage to explain. "By the way, when did I become your fiancé?" He chuckled. "Aren't you?" At this time Harrison was really thick-skinned, expressing his inner thoughts to her so directly. Actually, he became bolder, probably starting after Mrs. Stone came to the house. Stella also chose silence. "We haven't reached the stage of discussing marriage yet. Don't get too carried away, I haven't agreed to you yet." Harrison let out an ah, immediately sitting back in his seat, then looking out the window, starting to sigh silently. Turns out it was always me being sentimental. Stella hadn't thought about being with Harrison while having nothing. Only the moment she saw Mrs. Stone asking about her health, her heart seemed to feel the warmth from a mother again. Silence for a long time, no one spoke again in the car. At this time, Stella's phone rang once. She looked, it was a message from Julian. Stella looked at the time, asking, "Teacher Cole hasn't rested yet?" Julian answered immediately. "Isn't Stella not resting too?" Stella replied with a ha-ha, immediately seeing Julian issuing an invitation to her, saying to practice piano with her, then asking Stella to participate in a piano duet competition with him. Maybe seeing Stella not replying for a long time, Julian said again, "If it's inconvenient for Stella, I won't force it." Actually, it wasn't inconvenient. Stella hesitated for a while, still agreeing. Anyway, it was just ordinary piano playing. Harrison shouldn't refuse this matter. So to prepare for this competition, Stella would go to the kindergarten to practice piano from time to time. This was also a request Stella made, to practice piano only in the kindergarten. Didn't know what Harrison was busy with these days, rarely seen. As soon as Harrison came home, he was tired to the extent of falling asleep as soon as he lay down. But looking at this wedding venue he arranged himself, he felt exceptionally satisfied. He even took the assistant to buy a ring in the store, picking for a long time before roughly picking a somewhat satisfactory one. When returning home, seeing the meal Stella left for him, his heart was also warm. Originally planned to propose to Stella the next day, but maybe because of being too tired. When waking up, found Stella had already gone out. He frowned, then called the butler asking, "Where did Madam go?" The butler shook his head. These days Madam goes out very early, then comes back at night. Out for so long? Stella had no job, nor any relatives or friends she knew. What was she busy with so many days? At this time, Harrison became suspicious about who Stella was with these days, but he didn't call to ask. Instead, sat on the living room sofa waiting for Stella to come home. The sky darkened quickly today. Harrison sat on the sofa counting time. Minute by minute passing, felt very tormented. After all, there were some unsolved doubts in his heart. Harrison was also afraid this matter would make Stella angry. But if not asking, he liked to let his imagination run wild. The butler saw Harrison guarding the living room all the time, also guessing the purpose of his waiting in the living room. Suddenly pondering if the words he said back then would harm Stella. Stella returning home saw Harrison already home, stunned, but could only brace herself to walk in, then closed the door. Harrison immediately asked her a sentence. "Where did you go?" Stella didn't intend to lie. "Kindergarten." Miraculously, Harrison didn't continue to ask. Stella consciously went to the kitchen to cook. Next, didn't say any words. Because the guilty one was her, Stella wouldn't actively find some topics to chat. Harrison looked towards Stella from time to time, finally asking a sentence. "Is the kindergarten that fun? Going to accompany children every day?" Stella smiled. "That child Gavin rushes to tell me to play with him as soon as he sees me. Feel he is indeed quite cute." Harrison gave a faint "oh," noticing Stella's constantly dodging eyes. Suddenly had a decision in his heart. Stella suddenly spoke at this time asking, "Are you going to work at the company tomorrow?" Harrison answered without hesitation. "Should be going, might need to discuss business trip matters." This answer made her breathe a sigh of relief, as if there really was some guilty conscience she didn't want Harrison to discover. Harrison pretended to get up to go to the company the next day, actually turned back halfway, just waiting for Stella to take a taxi to the kindergarten. Waiting roughly half an hour at the spot, saw Stella come out. He kept praying in his heart, Stella don't lie to him. Stella's guilty appearance last night still made Harrison bear a grudge against her. Follow up. Harrison saw Stella's car indeed stopped at the kindergarten gate, slightly relieved in his heart. but seeing a young man come out from inside the school to receive her in. Harrison's face instantly turned gloomy. Eyes flashed a trace of vicious hostility. He got out immediately, following into the kindergarten, but kept hiding in the dark. Watching Stella seem very familiar with him, Harrison clenched his fists. Could it be the reason Stella didn't want to marry him was because of this man? When did he know Stella? Who was this man again? Why did Stella refuse to tell him the truth? Doubts surged one by one in his heart, making his heart very irritable now. He didn't understand if it was purely playing with children. Why refuse to tell him? If not? Soon piano sounds came from the classroom. Only then did Harrison realize, so she came to play piano with this man, and there were basically no students in the classroom, just the two of them making eyes at each other playing piano here. Harrison really couldn't watch anymore, finally leaving angrily. Just took a photo as evidence, then planned to confront Stella directly. But Harrison still wasn't as calm as he imagined. He still dialed Stella's phone. Stella also answered Harrison's call very quickly, immediately hearing Harrison's low questioning. "Where are you?" she replied. "In the kindergarten." "Doing what?" Harrison didn't want to hear Stella lie again, if not telling the truth again. Stella looked at Julian beside her. "The kindergarten teacher needs to participate in a duet competition. I'm practicing piano with him." Harrison didn't speak for a long time, saying after a while, "When are you coming back?" She was stunned for a while, looking at Julian beside her. "I'm coming back right away." "I'll wait for you." Harrison hung up the phone. This abnormal condition began to make Stella feel uneasy. Julian asked from the side, "Just now was?" Stella came back to her senses and smiled. "Was." Suddenly remembered, Harrison and her relationship was just a transaction relationship. How should she answer Julian this question? Was boyfriend. Julian then reacted, "So your boyfriend calling, is he jealous?" Stella fell silent. "I didn't tell him about this matter." After receiving Harrison's call, Stella had no mood to practice piano here with peace of mind. Went home a bit earlier. She was terrified all the way, because listening to his cold tone on the phone just now made Stella wonder what exactly happened. She got out of the car with a perturbed mentality, deliberately slowing down, giving herself some time to think. Looking at that door right in front, finally Stella took a deep breath, then entered the fingerprint to walk in. The living room didn't turn on lights. Stella didn't move to turn on the light either, but went straight to the second floor. In Harrison's room, only that warm desk lamp on the bedside table was on. She could see from afar Harrison happened to sit in the lightless shadow, expression unclear. But intuition told her the current situation was something she couldn't foresee herself. She walked slowly towards Harrison, seeing that photo held in his hand, causing Stella to tremble all over. Was he tracking her? Stella dared not ask, just stood beside him for a long time. Only then did Harrison raise his eyes. At this time, his handsome face was clouded. He lowered his voice, carrying anger. "Is this the real reason you didn't want to marry me before? What two worlds, what misgivings, all fake?" Originally thought Harrison was just simply jealous. Stella absolutely didn't expect Harrison actually thought like this. Distrusting her so much, Stella looked at Harrison, saying these words, doubting her in disbelief. That cold attitude, every word was like dense needles piercing into her heart. "Harrison, if you distrust me so much, why not cancel the wedding directly?" He threw that photo of Stella and Julian heavily on the ground. "Cancel. So you can fly far away with that Julian Cole?" Stella looked at Harrison's irrational, angry eyes, her own heart also feeling terrible. "I have nothing to do with Julian Cole. If you don't believe this marriage, no need to proceed." She didn't want to make trouble unreasonably with Harrison here, turning to leave. Harrison saw Stella really leaving without saying a word of explanation. That anger in his heart suddenly dissipated a bit, followed by fear. If she really had nothing to do with Julian, and he suspected here, would it hurt Stella's heart? Once reason returned, instantly felt scared afterwards. Harrison immediately rushed up, hugging Stella's waist in a fit of pique. Stella was startled. After reacting, immediately began to struggle. "Don't you disbelieve me?" Let go. Just that Harrison's strength was great. The effect of Stella's struggle could only be hugging tighter. Immediately, he lowered his head and bit on her ear, carrying a meaning of punishment. Stella felt pain, subconsciously shrinking her neck. Harrison didn't let it go until Stella softly cried out in pain. Immediately, Stella heard Harrison murmur in her ear, "Stella." I was just angry. I just wanted to wait for you to explain to me personally. Why don't you explain, and why do you feel we two aren't people of the same world? The me 5 years ago, my status was also worlds apart from yours. I also had the same thoughts as you. But what I wanted more was still to be with you. Then I would also work hard to catch up with you. Why don't you try a little harder, giving up so easily? Yes, thinking about it this way, what Harrison said was indeed very correct. Harrison, who basically had nothing 5 years ago, could still have such a firm choice amidst so many people's ridicule. Indeed, very admirable. Since Harrison could do it, why couldn't she? Moreover, there were no other obstacles between Stella and Harrison at all, just a hurdle of having money and no money. She lifted her foot slightly to step across, wouldn't it be crossed? Last time seeing Mrs. Stone, Mrs. Stone's impression of her should be very good, otherwise she wouldn't ask such questions. What Stella couldn't get over was the hurdle of her own self-esteem. This hurdle she crossed for 5 years. Only, it seemed this hurdle shattered itself. She held Harrison's hand back. Okay, I know. Later Stella learned that Harrison not coming home those few days was preparing for the wedding for her. Thinking this way, felt more and more like a scum woman letting others down. After that day, Stella completely let go of the past. Getting along with Harrison was like returning to 5 years ago. Harrison looked at her relaxed and jumping appearance, exceptionally happy. Also took Stella out to play every day. After playing continuously for several days, Harrison began to be busy. It was said because of slacking off, the matters needing processing at work piled up into a mountain. Harrison stayed directly at the company for a day and a night. Stella woke up early finding Harrison didn't come back. Afraid Harrison would starve, she prepared breakfast for Harrison at home, then personally delivered it to the company. Actually, this was her first time coming to Harrison's company. Wondered if she would be stopped by company people. Stella wanted to give Harrison a surprise again, so didn't choose to call Harrison to give the employees a heads up. She just strutted into the company. Company people saw her come in. Although casting gazes at her, they didn't have the intention to come forward to block. Immediately, that receptionist employee walked in front of her. Then the first sentence was actually asking, "Are you here to find President Stone?" Stella, stunned, only cared about nodding. Then the female employee extended her hand. "I'll take you up to find President Stone. Please follow me." "Okay, thank you." In the elevator, Stella was still somewhat perturbed. Kept thinking about why. Until reaching Harrison's office, realizing why people in this company would all know her. This Harrison directly placed her photo on the office desk, the kind visible as soon as entering the door. Harrison's office door wasn't closed. He was also immersed in work, never looking up. It was Stella deliberately making a little noise before Harrison had a slight reaction. But Harrison didn't look up, just said faintly, "Any matter, find the vice chairman, I'm too busy." No response outside. Harrison also could feel the person standing at the door hadn't left. At this time, felt something wrong. He raised his eyes, seeing Stella standing at the door. Harrison's subconscious reaction was to put away the photo placed on the table. "Stella, why did you come?" Stella squeezed out a fake smile. "If I didn't come, how would I know you placed my photo so brazenly facing the door? Are you afraid others won't recognize me?" Harrison deliberately made a pitiful appearance, hugging the photo in his hand, unable to put it down. "Isn't this declaring sovereignty on your behalf? What if someone takes a fancy to me? You don't come to my company to check." Stella laughed out loud. "You really think besides me, who else is blind enough to take a fancy to you?" Then placed the breakfast carried in hand on Harrison's desk. "Eat." Oh, looking at it this way, felt their President Stone was still henpecked. Felt the president's wife was like the kind managing money. Then any important decisions and trivial matters must also be managed by Stella. Following the gradually arrogant discussion, Stella and Harrison inside both discovered those curious employees eavesdropping outside. Those employees finished discussing, then found Harrison and Stella sitting over there at the desk disappeared. Looking left and right, realized Stella and Harrison had already walked to their side. Harrison couldn't help teasing, "When you eavesdrop, don't you know to lower your voice?" Employees laughed awkwardly, daring not say a word, ran away directly. Stella looked at that group of employees returning to their posts quickly, couldn't help saying to Harrison, "Your company's employees are quite cute." Harrison immediately turned to look at Stella. "Cute?" Guessing Harrison was jealous again because of this sentence, Stella pulled Harrison into the office, locking the door this time. Then opening the packaging while complaining, "Can get jealous over this. Are you a 3-year-old child?" Harrison hummed. "I don't care." Helplessly, Stella could only shake her head, mouth still agreeing with the unreasonable Harrison. Okay, I won't praise others casually." Only then did Harrison take the boxed meal and start eating. Bored, Stella saw the contract on Harrison's table, instantly felt very familiar, picked it up to look. Harrison saw Stella's face heavy, brows kept furrowing, asked worriedly, "What's wrong?" Stella looked at the company name on it, instantly couldn't remember where exactly she had seen it. Immediately she voiced her doubt. "I always feel I've seen this company's name somewhere." Harrison hit the most problematic point with one sentence, "But, Stella, you didn't care about these before. If you have seen it, it can only be with your dad." Harrison's sentence woke Stella up immediately. Only then did Stella recall that scene carefully. At that time, Mr. Sterling was also discussing cooperation matters with this company. Maybe in a moment of urgency sent it wrong, then Mr. Sterling sent the online contract to her phone. Stella was somewhat confused when receiving the message, but she clicked to look at that time. Only saw that company's name. Before having time to look at other clauses, it was retracted. "My dad went bankrupt because he signed a contract with this company." Stella didn't know why she said such words. Perhaps just out of inner fear, she subconsciously blamed this matter on the opposing company of this contract. Hearing this, Harrison was also slightly stunned. He saw the clauses on it were all okay, nor were there any illegal places. Stella's sentence was indeed groundless, but to make Stella feel at ease, Harrison told her, "It's okay, Stella, I won't sign this contract." Okay. After calling the driver to send Stella home, Harrison picked up that contract again. Studied it carefully. Almost every item on it was beneficial to Party B indeed. How could a company forgo its own profit and insist on using such a contract to cooperate with other companies? Harrison asked the assistant to investigate this company's background, especially asking him to check if any companies went bankrupt immediately after cooperating with him. Just finished instructing, Stella called, telling Harrison again not to sign a contract with that company. Harrison comforted Stella's emotions, assuring her again he absolutely wouldn't sign the contract. Only then did Stella hang up half believing. If this matter was exactly the same as Stella thought, then this company would probably be seized soon. Harrison put aside the cooperation with this person first, considering others' cooperation projects first. Almost waiting for the assistant's answer again, results didn't come out until evening. Harrison looked again at the text message sent by Stella waiting for him to go back to eat together. Afraid he would stand her up, felt somewhat sorry in his heart and very anxious. Finally waiting for those knocks on the door, the assistant walked in, holding a document in hand. Handed it to Harrison. Harrison opened the document inside immediately. The assistant stood in front saying, "President Stone, why did you check this?" Actually, initially it was curiosity because of those words from Stella. But until later, Harrison thought more and more uncomprehendingly about this matter. Like a big household like the Sterling family, so rich, Mr. Sterling's business mind surely wouldn't cause serious errors due to work affairs, thereby ruining a whole family business. So the biggest possibility could only be someone playing dirty tricks behind the scenes, then causing the Sterling family and company to all go bankrupt. Harrison read the contract on it anxiously. Where did this come from? The assistant said it was found that this document appeared in many companies, and those companies indeed either went bankrupt or were already canceled. This matter became very strange, but Harrison really didn't find anything wrong inside. Could only hand all these to the vice chairman to check, because the vice chairman was particularly good at handling this kind of thing. As soon as Harrison returned home, Stella asked him again uneasily, "I didn't sign, really?" Harrison didn't expect this vice chairman's speed was really fast. While Harrison was taking Stella for a walk, he received a call saying that contract was indeed a huge trap. At the same time, he also contacted the police to investigate that company together. What the vice chairman found was actually just the tip of the iceberg. Once the police intervened, more explosive things were discovered. After this matter came to light, it was known that this was a huge pit specifically set up by that company. As long as you sign the contract on this, some internal company information would be stolen. Then doing a little tinkering in various aspects of the company could cause poor capital flow of the company or potential safety hazards in quality. That company was finally seized by the police. Obtaining this result, Stella felt much relieved in her heart. After all, the innocent people were them, and the injured Stella was also one of them. Perhaps this matter was also a knot hidden in Stella's heart for a long time. Initial Stella thought it was really some operational or management error appearing. Unexpectedly, the final ending was actually being framed. Those people were finally sentenced to life imprisonment. Stella's mood calmed down a bit. Harrison took Stella to the seaside to relax that day, but inadvertently saw a villa located by the sea. Stella looked at that villa, stars full in her eyes twinkling. Harrison asked Stella a sentence. "Beautiful," Stella nodded. "Beautiful. If we live here in the future, it would be great." He didn't reply for a long time. Stella turned back to look, saw Harrison kneeling on one knee in front of her, holding that ring used for proposing in his hand. But Stella completely didn't expect Harrison would propose to her today. The wedding prepared halfway last time was ruined by Harrison himself, so he promised to give Stella a bigger and better wedding. Actually, what Stella wanted was not any luxury and romance at all, just Harrison the person. After the proposal that day, he began to impatiently rearrange the wedding venue again. Basically busy until Stella could only see Harrison once a day. Just because of that wedding venue matter, Harrison busied for 3 days. 3 days later, Harrison was still mysterious, not letting Stella go to the wedding venue to look, just taking Stella to try on wedding dresses. This time, the wedding dress seemed more special than the one she picked last time. When Stella wore it on her body, couldn't say exactly where it was special, until the female employee behind said a sentence that this wedding dress was specially customized. Wait until Stella asked what it was customized based on, realized how much thought Harrison actually spent. Returning home, she sat on the sofa contemplating. Harrison was so good to her, yet Stella did nothing for him. Always felt very sorry in her heart. After she told this matter to Harrison, Harrison was speaking words very solemnly and seriously one second that there was no need to haggle over so much between two people. In a blink began to playfully set up Stella saying, "How about you help me give birth to a big chubby boy or little princess?" Stella gave Harrison a big slap directly. Although knowing Harrison was just to coax her happy, she indeed had to make due preparations for having children in the future. She didn't say really not giving birth. After saying these words, instantly Stella regretted. Harrison happily carried Stella back to the room directly. Waking up the next day, Stella didn't make breakfast for Harrison, eating with relish alone. Harrison could only watch aggrievedly. Finally, Stella couldn't bear it. After eating full, let Harrison finish the leftovers, which were still plenty. On Stella's birthday, Harrison promised Stella a most memorable gift. That was their wedding. He invited many people, also calling those alumni who once looked down on the two of them. Seeing them so glorious now, faces still hanging a trace of unconcealable jealousy. That grand wedding became a fairy tale, circulating in everyone's mouth, all praising the groom and bride, a golden boy and jade girl, a talented man and beautiful woman. Harrison bought a house by the sea, also starting to gradually detach from work, throwing all those annoying things to the company's vice chairman. Stella could hear his complaints on the phone every day. He even wanted Stella to say some good words to Harrison, giving him a few days off. "You only know to squeeze employees." Harrison's long fingers scraped Stella's nose bridge. "Isn't this to spare time to accompany you?" He extended his hand, leading Stella to the backyard. Stella wore a pure white gauze dress, tying her long hair with a white bow. Sitting on the swing, facing the sea, looking at the blue seawater and the setting sun's afterglow. Harrison lay on the lounge chair, blowing the cool sea breeze, gaze never moving away from Stella. At this moment, Stella turned to look at Harrison. She saw stars in Harrison's eyes.